Okay, let's talk about something you've probably never given a second thought to: the toilet seat. I know, it sounds ridiculously simple, right? But there's actually a whole world of science and style packed into this everyday object. So let's get into it. The material is everything. It dictates how durable it is, how hygienic it is, how it actually feels day to day, and how it holds up to, life. And if you get this wrong, especially in a high-end project, you could be looking at frequent replacements and a finish that just doesn't last. So let's meet the two main players in this game. In one corner, we've got something called UF, and in the other corner, we have PP. Right now, that probably just looks like alphabet soup, but trust me, understanding these two is the key to making the right call. First up is urea-formaldehyde. Stack up feature by feature. We're going to look at everything from how they look to how much they cost to see where each one really shines. So as you can see, this is a classic matching. UFH has this incredible surface hardness. It's built to resist scratches from, belt buckles, abrasive cleaners, you name it. And it keeps that glossy finish for years. PP, on the other hand, is the opposite. It's flexible, so it's not going to crack if you accidentally drop something on it, but that softer surface, it's going to show those little scratches a lot more easily over time. Now, when it comes to cleaning, they're both pretty easy, but UFF definitely has a slight edge. Its surface is so dense and non-porous, it's basically like glass. There's just nowhere for germs to hide. And while PP is also easy to wipe down, those little scratches we just talked about can become tiny little hiding spots for dirt and bacteria as the years go by. And especially if you're working on a high-end home or commercial project, which one is actually the better long-term investment? When you want to install it and just not think about it again for a decade. Which material gets that job done? So let's just get to the bottom line. Forget about the feel, forget about the finish for just a second. Let's talk pure, simple lifespan. How long can you really expect each of these to last under normal, everyday use? For a UF toilet seat, you are looking at a service life that can easily go past 10 years. Seriously, because of that incredible scratch and stain resistance, it's basically designed to look brand new for years and years. Now let's flip over to PP. Yeah, it's tough, but its typical lifespan is really in that 3 to 5 year range. Over time, the scratches start to add up, it can get discolored, and it just means you're probably going to have to replace it a lot sooner. And look, this really sums it all up on the table. How do you actually pick your perfect match? Because it's not really about one being better than the other. It's about picking the right tool for the right job. So let's break down exactly how you make that call. You're going to want to go with UF if your project just demands that premium, sophisticated look, something that actually matches the ceramic of the toilet bowl itself. If you're designing for a luxury home, a fancy hotel, and your goal is a long-term, buy it once, cry once kind of solution, then UF is, without a doubt, your choice. On the other hand, PP is absolutely the smart call for, say, a busy family home with kids, where things might get dropped, and you really need that impact resistance. If you're on a tight budget, or if you just want a lightweight seat that's super easy and cheap to replace every few years, PP is your practical champion. You now know more about toilet seats than you ever thought possible. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other seemingly simple little details around our homes are we completely overlooking that have this much hidden complexity and this big of an impact?
Let's crack this case wide open and figure out why this keeps happening.
So yeah, this is the big question. The problem isn't always the wood itself. It's the place we put it in. A place that's secretly trying to destroy it every single day.
And this is the perfect way to think about it. A tropical microclimate. Every time you take a hot shower, you're basically creating a personal steam room. It's hot, it's...
All right, so we know the bathroom is a battlefield. But how does that battle actually play out? Let's zoom in and look at the forensics of how a perfectly good seat ends up cracked and yellowed.
Everything, and I mean everything, comes down to the protective coating. Think of it as the seat's body armor. It's a thin layer of varnish or paint designed to keep moisture out. The second that armor is breached, even in a tiny spot, the clock starts ticking. And here's how it happens, step by step. It starts with a scratch so small you can't even see it, maybe from scrubbing too hard or even the rivet on your jeans. Then water vapor sneaks into that tiny breach. The wood fibers inside start soaking it up and swelling, but that hard outer coating can't stretch, so something's got to give. The expanding wood literally tears its own armor apart from the inside out.
And this is the result.
We've done the autopsy, now what can we actually do about it? Let's talk strategy.
Let's get into how you can be a smarter buyer and owner.
All right, this chart is basically your secret weapon for your next trip to the hardware store. Sure, basic plastic is cheap, but you'll be replacing it in a few years. Wood, as we know, can last a long time, but it needs care. But check out the unsung hero here, Duroplast. This stuff is a beast. It's a super dense plastic that's almost like ceramic.
But you know what? No matter what seat you buy, these tips are gold. Please ditch the harsh cleaners. Mild soap and water is all you need. And if you have a wood seat, just wipe it, don't soak it. Also, check those bolts every now and then. A wobbly seat creates stress points. And most importantly, run that bathroom fan. Fight back against that tropical microclimate.
Now that you know the real enemy is moisture, you've got a choice to make. Do you ditch wood altogether for a more modern, durable material? Or do you stick with the classic you love, but just make sure you're buying one with upgraded, heavy-duty armor? The choice is yours. All right, let's talk about something you probably use every single day, but never ever give a second thought to. Your toilet seat. Yeah, I know. But stick with me, because there's some seriously cool science hiding in plain sight here, and it's actually a bigger deal now than it's ever been.
I mean, for real, have you ever stopped about it? You probably just figure, it's plastic. And you're not wrong. But what kind of plastic? And, why should you even care?
Oh, it definitely matters, believe me. The material that seat is made from changes everything. How it feels, how long it's going to last, even how easy it is to clean. And now, with smart tech invading every corner of our homes, the humble toilet seat is facing a whole new world of problems.
Look at how we think about the bathroom itself. It's been getting a major makeover, It's not just a utility closet anymore. That's the key right there. People want their bathroom to be a sanctuary, like a mini spa in their own home. And when you're designing your personal retreat, every little detail suddenly becomes super important, especially the things you actually touch. Quality and feel, they're now front and center.
For decades, the toilet seat game was pretty simple. It was dominated by two main materials, two heavy hitters, PP and UF. So, let's meet the original contenders in this fight. Okay, the big difference between these two really comes down to how they're made. On one side, you've got PP, or polypropylene. It's what's called a thermoplastic. The easy way to think about it is like candle wax. You can melt it down and reshape it over and over. That's what makes it flexible and pretty tough. On the other side, you've got UF, or urea-formaldehyde. This stuff is a thermoset. Think of it more like pottery. Once you fire it in the kiln, that shape is permanent. It's set for good, which gives it that hard, heavy, almost ceramic-like feel.
So here's the quick and dirty break. That was your choice. Simple, right? But then technology basically kicked the bathroom door off its hinges. The smart toilet showed up and it changed the entire game.
See, a smart toilet seat isn't just a lid anymore. It's a complicated piece of electronics. It has to have space for circuit boards, sensors, little water heaters, even air dryers. All that has to be packed inside. It needs to be strong enough to support a person's weight, and this is a big one. It has to be a great electrical insulator. And on top of all that, it still has to look and feel amazing. And this is exactly where our old champs, PP and UF, start to stumble. UF is just too brittle to safely house all that sensitive tech. You drop the lid, and you could break more than just the seat. And while PP is a good insulator, it's just not always rigid enough for these new, complex designs. The market was
First material to really step up and become the go-to solution for that first wave of smart toilets was ABS. So what in the world is ABS? Well, it's another one of those thermoplastics, but this one is known for being incredibly strong and easy to mold with pinpoint precision. And I'll tell you what, if you've ever stepped on a Lego brick in the middle of the night, you know exactly how strong and tough this stuff is. That same precision is perfect for making complex electronic parts.
ABS really hit the sweet spot. It was strong and rigid. It was a fantastic insulator. You could mold it into all these crazy, intricate shapes, and you could do it all pretty cheaply. For a while there, it really seemed like the perfect solution. It was the king for a reason, but brilliant white smart toilet seat would slowly but surely turn into this dingy, faded yellow color. And the culprit is right in the name. The B in ABS stands for butadiene. It turns out its molecular structure just can't handle UV light, or even the ozone in the air, and it breaks down, causing that ugly, irreversible yellowing.
And let's be honest, a yellowing toilet seat doesn't exactly scream personal wellness retreat, right? The industry needed another upgrade. A material with all the good stuff from ABS, but without that fatal flaw. Enter ASA.
Now this is the really cool part, this secret sauce. Chemically, ASA is almost identical to ABS, but scientists made one tiny genius tweak. They swapped out that unstable butadiene component for something called acrylic ester rubber. The new stuff doesn't have those weak double bonds, which makes it incredibly resistant to UV light and weathering. It's a tiny change at the molecular level that makes a massive difference in your bathroom.
What this means is you get a seat with... What does all this mean for you, right now, if you're shopping for a smart toilet? Well, you're basically looking at a final showdown between these two advanced plastics, ABS and ASA. So here it is, head to head. Both of them are plenty strong for the job. The real choice comes down to how long you want it to look good and what your bathroom is like. Look, ABS is a great, cost-effective choice, and it's perfect for a lot of standard smart toilets. But if you're investing in a really high-end model, or if you have a bathroom with a ton of natural light, spending a little extra for ASA is probably a smart move to avoid that dreaded yellowing down the road.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Just the simple act of adding some electronics to a toilet seat forced an entire industry to go back to the drawing board and innovate at the molecular level. It kind of leaves you with this bigger question. As we keep making our homes smarter, packing tech into every little thing, what's the next everyday dumb object that's going to need its own material revolution?
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep and building a real-world playbook. We're talking about one of the biggest puzzles in manufacturing right now, how to source certified recycled polypropylene without, completely wrecking your product's quality. First things first, let's get one thing straight. This whole shift to recycled materials, it's not just some passing trend. It's a massive change in what the market and even regulators are demanding. Honestly, for a lot of companies now, using materials like recycled polypropylene is fast becoming a requirement just to stay in the game. And what's so fascinating here is that it all comes down. You're going to use recycled PP? Great, but how do you prove it's the real deal? How do you make sure you're not getting scammed? Well, that brings us to the gold standard for this stuff, the Global Recycle Standard, or GRS. Look, GRS is not just a fancy sticker someone slaps on a bag of pellets, but how in the world do you find suppliers who are genuinely compliant and not just pretending? This is where you need a solid playbook for vetting them. And this is absolutely crucial to understand. Those big B2B websites can be a minefield. You see a great-looking supplier profile, but it could just be a trading company, a middleman who has zero control over production. And that GRS certificate they're probably displaying, it could be expired, or worse, it might belong to a completely different factory. So, here's how you cut through the noise. It's your checklist. First, use the platform's own tools, like filtering for verified suppliers. It's a starting point. Then, you test them. Your first message can't just be about price. Ask a really, really technical question about their PP. They look promising. The next step is non-negotiable. You or someone you trust has to get on that factory floor and see their quality management system with your own two eyes. And the audit starts the second the raw materials arrive at their door. This is called incoming quality control, or IQC. Does the factory actually test the GRS certified pellets they buy? Or are they just hoping their supplier was honest? A great manufacturer tests everything. Don't just ask if they do it. Ask to see the test records. Then you walk the production line. You're looking for signs of in-process quality control. And honestly, one of the most revealing things you can look for is a simple, clearly marked area, a red bin, a quarantine zone, whatever they call it, for defective parts. This little detail is a huge sign of a mature quality system. It means that a bad part won't accidentally get boxed up and shipped to you. Is the expert level stuff that so many people miss. Let's say you do all of that. You find a certified supplier, they pass your audit, everything looks great. You're still not done. There's a hidden technical hurdle you have to clear. And here it is, the inconvenient truth. The recycling process itself, the melting, the reforming, can actually damage the plastic's molecular structure. It shortens the polymer chains. What does that mean for you? It means the final material can be weaker, more brittle, and less durable than virgin plastic. Just swapping in GRS PP without thinking about this is a recipe for disaster. I mean, this table really just lays it all out, doesn't it? The picture becomes really clear. Sourcing GRS-certified recycled PP is not just another task on a spreadsheet. It's a complex, strategic process. And when you get it right, it becomes a powerful competitive advantage. If you take only one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. Success comes from this three-part strategy. First, you vet your suppliers like a detective to screen out the fakers. Second, you audit their factories to confirm their quality systems are real. And third, you provide detailed technical specifications to engineer failure out of your product. That is how you lead the market and protect your brand. And that really leaves us with one final. In this new world where sustainability is everything, you have to ask yourself, is your sourcing strategy just about pinching pennies today? Or is it about building a bulletproof brand reputation that customers will trust for the next 10 years? All right, let's talk about a classic bathroom mystery, your soft-close toilet seat. You know, the one that suddenly decided to start slamming shut. The big question is, can you actually fix it, or do you have to buy a whole new one? Well, let's dive in and figure it out. Oh yeah, we've all been there. It's the middle of the night, and slam. That sound that jolts you awake, it's a sign your once silent toilet seat has officially given up the ghost. But you know, that slam is more than just annoying. It's basically screaming at you that it's time to do something. Okay, first thing is first, we need to identify the problem. So let's put on our detective hats for a second. The main suspects are usually a slamming lid, a wobbly seat that shifts around, or, well, actual visible cracks. Each of these clues points to a totally different solution. Here's a little cheat sheet of the most common issues. If your seat is slamming down, the problem is almost always with something called the hydraulic damper. If it's wobbling all over the place, chances are it's just loose mounting hardware. And if it just looks crooked or misaligned, that's probably a simple installation error. And you know what? All of those sound pretty fixable, right? And that brings us to the really good news. A lot of these issues are surprisingly, and I mean surprisingly, easy to fix yourself. So let's walk through the most common repairs, starting with that infuriating slam. You know, the magic behind that whisper quiet close is a little part called a damper, and it's hidden right inside the hinge. Think of it like a tiny shock absorber for your toilet seat. It's filled with this thick fluid that creates resistance, slowing everything down. When the seat starts slamming, it usually just means this little mechanism needs a quick tune-up. So how do you know for sure if the damper is the problem? Well, here's a super simple test you can do right now. Lift the seat all the way up so it's at a 90-degree angle and just let it go. Pull out your phone and time it. A healthy, happy, soft close seat should take somewhere between 5 and 8 seconds to close completely. If yours is dropping faster than that, it's time for a little adjustment. And you're not going to believe how simple the fix is. A huge warning. If you hear a creak, your first instinct might be to grab a can of WD-40. Whatever you do, don't do it. Those petroleum-based sprays can actually eat away at the plastic parts in the hinge, causing permanent damage and, yep, voiding your warranty. If you see some gunk in there, just stick to simple soap and water. Okay, let's talk about the other side of the coin, the point of no return. Because sometimes a repair just isn't going to cut it. There are some really clear signs that tell you it's time to stop tinkering and start shopping. Yeah, this one is pretty obvious. The clearest sign of all is physical damage. If your seat has visible cracks like this, it is beyond repair. And this isn't just about looks. It's a major hygiene issue since cracks can trap all. Okay, so we've played detective, we've looked at both paths, the quick fix and the full replacement. Let's bring it all together and make that final call. Now, before you start adding new toilet seats to your online shopping cart, think about this statistic. A staggering 75% of all soft close issues can be fixed with simple, zero-cost adjustments. That means for 3 out of every 4 of you watching, you can probably fix this problem for free right now. So here's the bottom line. Repairing a slamming or wobbly seat, it's going to cost you nothing but maybe 5 or 10 minutes of your time. A full replacement, that can run you anywhere from $20 to over $200. So the choice is pretty clear. You should always try to repair it first. But if you see any cracks or real physical damage, replace it immediately. And there you have it. You are now fully equipped to diagnose that slamming seat, perform a simple repair, or confidently decide when it's just time for an upgrade. The power to bring peace and quiet back to your bathroom is officially in your hands. You know that quiet, gentle thump of a soft-close toilet seat? Ever wonder about the tiny piece of engineering that makes it happen and saves you from that startling slam in the middle of the night? Well, today we are diving deep into the hidden world of the soft close hinge, right? Splashed across the packaging, maybe in a product description online. 50,000. And let me tell you, it is not just some random figure they pulled out of thin air. It's a bold promise. It's a statement about quality and, more importantly, longevity. And what that 50,000 cycle promise really means for you and me is, world, do they actually do it? Come on, let's go behind the scenes, step inside the durability lab, and see what this test really looks like. This is where all those marketing claims meet cold, hard, mechanical reality. So every single test starts right here with a brand new, totally pristine set of hinges. I mean, they look perfect now, but they're about to go through an absolute ordeal that would just shred a lesser product. Think of this as their before picture. Now, this whole process is incredibly precise. First, they mount the hinge onto a special rig that mimics a real toilet perfectly. Then, they program this mechanical arm to open and close the seat 10 to 15 times a minute. It lifts it up to a 110-degree angle, and then just lets it close, over and over and over again, for 50,000 straight cycles. After all that, technicians come in and analyze every little aspect of its performance to see if it held up. Test is one thing, the real world is a whole different beast. As Dr. James Chen from Kohler points out, the perfect controlled conditions of a lab don't account for the real-world enemies of a soft-close hinge. It turns out, environmental factors can be just as destructive as all that mechanical wear. So what are these real-world enemies we're talking about? Well, for one, high humidity can literally slash a damper's lifespan by up to 40%. Extreme hot or cold temperatures, they can cause the oil inside to either thicken up and seize or thin out and lead to a slam. And here's a huge one, using the wrong lubricant. Spraying something like WD-40 on there can destroy the internal plastic components and will almost certainly void your warranty. This brings up hardware is tough enough. Manufacturers use what's called the salt spray test. They basically lock the hinges inside a chamber and just blast them with a continuous, corrosive salt fog. It's a brutal, accelerated way to simulate years and years of exposure to the harsh conditions in your bathroom or even in a home by the coast. The results get classified into different grades, and these grades tell you exactly what kind of environment the hinge is built for. So, grade 2, that's probably fine for a standard bathroom. But if you live somewhere with high humidity, you really want to be looking for at least a grade 3. And for the most extreme places, think coastal homes, top-tier grade 5 hardware can survive an incredible 480 hours in that salt fog chamber. We've looked at corrosion grades. What does all this technical stuff mean for you? It means that true quality isn't about marketing slogans. It's proven with hard data. And as a customer, you have every right to demand that proof. So the next time you're choosing a product, here's your quality checklist. First, ask for the full test report. Second, make sure it actually passed the 50,000 cycle test based on those strict criteria we talked about. Third, check its corrosion grade. You should really aim for grade 3 or higher for a bathroom. And finally, ask if you can get replacement parts. A truly high-quality product is one you can service, not just throw away. Because at the end of the day, that quiet, gentle close, it's not some simple luxury feature. It's a real feat of engineering, and it's proven through some seriously tough testing. So, knowing what you know now about the battle against wear and time and the elements, will you ever look at a humble toilet seat? You know the feeling. You sit down, and there it is, the dreaded side-to-side wobble. It shifts, it wiggles, and all of a sudden you're trying to balance on a very unstable throne. It's one of those little things that is just universally annoying. But have you ever stopped to wonder why it happens? And why it feels like no matter how many times you tighten it, it just comes loose again? I mean, serious battle all alone? You are definitely not. A study found that for a whopping 92% of people who finally just give up and buy a new toilet seat, their #1 complaint about the old one was that constant, annoying looseness. It's the top reason, the final straw. We get the problem. We understand the forces at work. Now, what's the solution? Well, it turns out it all starts in one very specific, often overlooked place. The hinge is key. I just love this quote. It's so true, right? They really are the unsung heroes. We never ever think about them, but the hinges are the entire support system. They are at the very heart of both the problem and the solution. And you can just see the difference right away. When you've got robust, the actual material of the seat itself plays a massive role in how long it's going to last. So let's talk about the materials that matter. Let's break down the common options you'll see. First, you have your standard plastic. It's affordable, it's super easy to clean, but you're probably only going to get about 3 to 5 years out of it. Then you have wood. People like it because it feels warmer and has a more stylish look, and it can last over 7 years. But then you've got this stuff called duroplast. This is a high-density plastic that feels almost like ceramic. It's incredibly hard, really scratch-resistant, and it's durable enough to last more than 10 years. So, if durability is your absolute #1 priority, if you want to install one seat and basically forget about it for the next decade, the data is really clear. For use in your home, Duroplast is the hands-down winner for longevity. These materials are just built differently. They're made to resist all those daily stresses that cause weaker ones to fail.
Let's bring this all home. How do we finally put an end to the wiggles and the wobbles and achieve the wobble-free future?
So here is the ultimate takeaway from all of this. The real fix for a wobbly toilet seat isn't getting better at tightening bolts every few weeks. It's about making a smarter choice right from the very start. It's about investing in quality hardware, those unsung hero hinges and a no-loosen system, and choosing a durable material that is built to last. By just choosing a little more wisely, you can completely banish one of life's most persistent little annoyances for good. So the only question left to ask is,
Let's get into it. You've probably never really thought about how your toilet seat is attached, right? I mean, why would you? But it turns out a huge trend in bathroom design has kicked off this really fascinating kind of hidden engineering battle, all focused on that one simple connection.
So this whole story really starts with how things right away, this beautiful design choice creates a massive practical problem. I mean, think about it for a second. If the back and the bottom of the toilet are totally sealed off by a wall or a piece of ceramic, how on earth are you supposed to get under there to tighten the nuts on the toilet seat bolts? It's a real head-scratcher.
And that right there brings us to what we're calling the modern toilet's dilemma.
Absolutely love a good problem. And this whole dilemma has led to two totally different solutions, two types of hardware that are now competing to be the new standard. So let's meet the contenders.
And here they are. This visual just lays it all out, doesn't it? On the left, you've got the traditionalist, the bottom mount hardware. You can see the long bolts and the nuts that go underneath. And on the right, you've got the innovator, the top mount hardware. See those white expanding parts? They are the game changers. They change absolutely everything.
Okay, let's break down how these actually work. Very different ways to solve the problem. One is the tried and true classic, and the other is the slick, modern solution. But which one is actually better? Well, let's put them head to head.
This table really breaks down the trade-offs perfectly. For your classic toilet where you can get underneath, bottom mount is still king. It's super stable and it costs next to nothing to make. But for those modern blind hole toilets, top mount is really the only way to go. All the work is done cleanly right from the top. Now here's the catch. Its stability, how solid it feels, depends completely on the quality of that little expansion verdict. What's the real answer? Especially for those sleek, concealed tank toilets that started this whole conversation in the first place.
Let's be 100% clear on this. If you are dealing with a modern, wall-hung, or fully skirted toilet, the top-mount system isn't just the better choice, it is the only engineering solution that actually works. You physically cannot install a seat using bottom-mount hardware. It's really an open and shut case.
How can you, as the person buying this stuff, make sure you get the right hardware and avoid that dreaded wobble? Let's go through a quick buyer's guide.
Okay, here's your simple 3-step checklist. First, know your toilet. Is it a classic design with open access underneath, or is it one of these modern blind hole models? Second, when you go to buy a new seat, be specific. Tell the salesperson you need either top fix or bottom fix hardware. And third, and this is the real pro tip, if you're getting a top fix system, ask the supplier to see its pull-out resistance test data. This is a nerdy way of forcing them to prove that their expansion part is actually high quality and won't fail on you.
And that's our deep dive. It's just a perfect example of how our simple desire for a cleaner-looking bathroom can end up driving real, actual engineering innovation. A design trend forced the complete reinvention of a piece of hardware that probably hadn't changed in 50 years. It just goes to show you that great ideas can come from the most unexpected places.
Some of the most amazing engineering is hidden in plain sight, in things we use every single day without a second thought. And today, we're talking about one of those, the humble toilet seat. Yeah, you heard me right. Turns out it's hiding a pretty incredible secret about just how strong it can be. All right, so let's just get right to it. Can a toilet seat really support 400 kilograms? We're talking almost 900 pounds. I mean, that sounds completely insane, right? Almost like an urban myth. Well, stick around, because we're going to get to the bottom of it. Let's dive in. We're going to start with the anatomy of a toilet seat. Because, to understand incredible strength, you first have to understand the most common points of failure. So when it comes to the seat itself, you're usually looking at two main materials. We spend all our time looking at the seat, but this quote really nails it. The hinges are the true backbone. They are the unsung heroes holding everything together. And when a seat finally gives up the ghost, 9 times out of 10, it's the hinges that go first. And you can see the difference right here. It's night and day, isn't it? On one side, you've got your standard hinges, usually just plastic or maybe a cheap zinc alloy. But look at the other side. That's solid, beefy, corrosion-resistant stainless steel. And this isn't about looks. This is pure engineering. This one simple difference is what separates a regular seat from a truly heavy-duty seat is actually strong. And it's not just marketing hype. Well, that's where this comes in. It's called the DIN 1951-16 standard. It's a German standard, and let me tell you, it is basically the final boss of toilet seat strength tests. And yeah, this isn't just some guy in a lab standing on a seat to see what happens. The DIN standard is serious business. They use precision equipment, like the rig you see here, to apply exact measured amounts of force. This is what proves that strength isn't just a word on a box. It's a real, scientifically backed attribute. This whole thing is basically a three-part torture test. First up is the static load test, which goes up to 175 kilograms. Then it gets crazy. They drop a 75-kilogram weight on it 15,000 times. And if that wasn't enough, they finish with a side movement test, yanking on it to check the hinge stability. You have to pass all three of these brutal tests to be considered a quality seat. All right, so let's get back to our big number, the 400-kilogram question. The answer lies within an even more extreme version of this very standard. We're talking about seats made for the toughest environments. Hospitals, busy public restrooms, places where failure is just not an option. And here we go. There it is. For serious, heavy-duty commercial and bariatric use, the DIN 1951-16 standard includes an extreme static load test. And the target? You guessed it, a staggering 400 kilograms. So no, it's not a myth. It's a very real, very demanding engineering benchmark. But how can you actually spot one of these engineering marvels for yourself? Say you actually need one. Well, here's a quick checklist to help you out. All right, here's your cheat sheet. First, material. You want Duraplast or UF for that rock-solid rigidity. Next, the hinges. Don't even think about it unless they're solid stainless steel. Then, check the buffers underneath. You want to see several big, broad ones to spread the weight evenly. But honestly, here's the most important tip of all. Don't just take their word for it. Don't trust the fancy marketing. Ask the seller to see the written DIN 19516 test report that specifically says it passed the 400-kilogram static load test. That piece of paper is the only proof that the 400-kilogram toilet seat, it's not a myth at all. It's a true marvel of engineering, built specifically for the most extreme needs. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? What other everyday objects are all around us, secretly over-engineered to handle conditions we could never even imagine? You run into two little acronyms that can feel like a brick wall: MOQ and lead time. They sound super technical, right? But they don't have to be. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you exactly what they mean and what numbers you should really expect when you're sourcing from China. It's what every single new entrepreneur wants to know. How many do I actually have to buy? And how long is it really going to take to get them? And you know what? These aren't just small details. Getting these answers wrong can sink your budget before you even start. But don't worry, we're going to give you the real-world, data-driven numbers you need to plan your launch like a total. First, we'll break down the lingo so you can talk the talk. Then, we're jumping straight into the numbers you've been waiting for. After that, we'll look at all the little things that can change those numbers, walk you through your first order step by step, and finally, tackle that big choice, OEM or ODM. All right, let's start at square one. Before we can even begin to talk about timelines or how much cash you'll need, we got to be on the same page about the two concepts that are the absolute foundation of any deal you'll make: MOQ and lead time. First up, MOQ. It stands for minimum order quantity. Let's talk realistic figures for MOQs and lead times when you're just getting started with a private label brand. And I've got some good news for you. The barrier to entry here is probably way lower than you think it is. This is especially true if you start with what we call light private labeling. All this means is you're taking a product the factory already makes, and you're just adding your own logo and maybe a custom box. You're not reinventing the wheel, you're just putting your own brand on it. So what are we talking about here? For that kind of simple, light customization, a really common MOQ is right around 500 units. We see this number pop up again and again across all sorts of products. And for someone just starting out, 500 is a pretty manageable number. It lets you get in the game without betting the farm. But the second you ask for something more complex, that number is, well, it depends. So let's talk about what exactly it depends on. Those numbers we just talked about, they're just a starting point. Any one of these things can change the whole equation. Need a custom mold for a unique shape? That's going to add a ton of time and money. Is the factory already swamped with orders for the holidays? Your lead time just got longer. And this last one is a biggie. Chinese New Year. You have to plan around it because it can shut down the entire country's manufacturing for weeks. This timeline right here, this is where it all comes together and you get the timeline, but how do you actually do it? What does the process look like from A to Z? Let's walk through the 5 essential steps to make sure your first order goes off without a hitch. It all starts with finding and vetting good suppliers. Once you find a partner you feel good about, you negotiate everything. Then comes step 3, and this part is non-negotiable. You have to get a physical sample, what we call a golden sample, in your hands for approval. That is the exact standard they have to meet. Only after you sign off on that does mass production begin. And then finally, you need one last inspection before it ships to make sure you're getting exactly what you paid for. And it's probably the biggest strategic choice you have to make, often before you even talk to a single supplier. Are you going to go down the OEM path or the ODM path? The answer is going to define your brand, your budget, and your entire launch. This slide just lays out the trade-off perfectly. Over on the left, you've got ODM, Original Design Manufacturing. Think of this like ordering off a restaurant menu. The factory has a catalog of stuff they already make. You pick one, slap your logo on it, and boom, you're in business. It's fast, it's cheap, and the MOQ is low. The huge catch? Your biggest competitor can order the exact same product tomorrow. Now on the right, that's OEM, Original Equipment Manufacturing. Here, you're the chef. You bring your own unique design, your own recipe to the factory. It's way slower and more expensive because you're paying for molds and development, but the final product is 100% unique and exclusive to your brand. And that quote just nails it, doesn't it? Now that you know the real numbers and the whole process, what's more important for your brand right now? Is it getting to market as fast and as cheap as possible? Or is it more important to have a truly unique product from day one? The way you answer that will tell you everything you need to know about your sourcing strategy.
Let's talk about a challenge that literally keeps every product manager up at night. You get that one perfect sample, and it's amazing. But then the big question hits. How on earth do you guarantee that the 10,000th unit is going to be just as good? How do you actually guarantee quality across the entire order?
And here's why that question is so incredibly important. Here's our 4-part plan to build, essentially, a fortress of quality around your product. First, we're going to start with the foundation, vetting your partner. Then, we'll create the blueprint for perfect. After that, we're going to put it all through a serious stress test. And finally, we'll build the watchtower to inspect the entire production run.
First crucial step, and this is something that has to happen before you even approve a sample. The simple truth is, your quality control system is only as strong as the partner you choose to work with, period.
You know when you're sourcing from those big online B2B platforms?
The next step is to create the blueprint. We need to define exactly what perfect means. And look, a physical sample is a great start, but on its own, it's not a contract.
This is where that golden sample becomes official. It needs to be physically signed and sealed by both you and the supplier. This one simple act transforms it from just a cool prototype into the aim for the stress test. To really truly know if a product is high quality, we have to test it against internationally recognized and often pretty brutal performance standards. This is where we separate the marketing claims from the engineered reality. Let's use a toilet seat as our example. I know, it seems simple, right? But for top-tier manufacturers, the gold standard for proving its durability is a German specification called DIN 1951.
Piece of our quality fortress, the watchtower. You've vetted your supplier, you've defined perfection, but now you have to actively monitor and inspect the production run itself. This is absolutely not a set it and forget it kind of process.
And this is so effective because of a really simple psychological principle. When suppliers know their work is being watched and checked, they just become far more diligent. It keeps everyone honest and focused on the standards that you've already agreed on.
The takeaway from all this, it's this. Quality and consistency are not accidents. They don't happen just because you hope for them or because you have a good relationship with your supplier. They are the direct result of a carefully engineered system of standards, testing, and constant verification. So we've covered the foundation, the blueprint, the stress test, and the watchtower. Each one plays a critical role, but that leaves one final question for you to think about. As you look at your own process, what's the one verification step, whether it's the factory audit, the detailed specs, the performance testing, or that final inspection that you absolutely positively cannot afford to skip?
All right, let's talk about something that can make or break an e-commerce business. Sourcing products from overseas on platforms like Alibaba. I mean, it's this incredible world of opportunity, right? But it's also a total minefield of risks that can absolutely sink your business before you even get started.
Just think about it for a second. With a few clicks on Alibaba or Made in China, you've got this gigantic global factory floor right at your fingertips. You can find literally any product you can dream of, you can compare prices, you can find partners to bring your whole vision to life. It really is the entrepreneur's dream.
The big but. This is the question that keeps people up at night. With all those listings, how do you actually know who you're dealing with? How do you dodge the scams, the shoddy products, and the suppliers that just ghost you the second they get your money? Well, that is exactly what we are going to figure out today. To beat the risks, you've got to know what you're up against first. So let's break down the 7 most common and most costly nightmares you're likely to face when you're sourcing products online. First up, credibility. Look, a super polished profile with a verified badge on it, that's not a guarantee of anything, really. Platform verification, a lot of the time that just confirms that they filled out some basic registration forms. It doesn't mean they're a great manufacturer. You'll find trading companies pretending to be factories, using fake photos, even showing you certificates that aren't theirs. This is probably the first and most common trap people fall into. Next, we have the infamous golden sample trap. Oh, this one is frustrating. A supplier sends you this absolutely flawless sample. You're thrilled, you approve it, you place a huge order, and then the bulk production shows up and it's nothing like what you approved. That perfect sample, it might have been made in a special R&D workshop, or worse, they might have just bought it from a competitor to win your business. Okay, so understanding the risks is half the battle. But now, let's get into the solution. Let's talk about the pro buyer's playbook. This is how you go from being a vulnerable rookie to a smart, protected professional. You know, the fastest way to filter out the bad suppliers is to just change how you ask questions. A rookie's first question is always, what's the price? A pro, on the other hand, immediately asks for super specific technical documents. A trading company just won't have that stuff. This simple change in how you approach them acts like an instant credibility test. So here is a clear, actionable process for you to follow. First, start by using the platform's own filters for verified or gold suppliers. It's a basic first step. Then you start demanding proof of quality and ethics, things like ISO 9001 or social audit reports. But honestly, the most crucial step, get them on a live video call and make them give you a factory supplier. You've chosen them. The job is not done, not even close. Now you have to protect your investment and lock in the quality standards you expect with an absolutely ironclad agreement. And a key part of that agreement is something called the Acceptable Quality Limit, or AQL. Now, this isn't just jargon. It is your quality guarantee. It defines, in black and white, exactly how many defects are acceptable before the entire shipment can be rejected. And for critical defects, things that could be a safety hazard, the acceptable limit is always 0. This has to be in your contract. Remember, quality control is not a one-time thing you do at the end. That's way too late. You need what I call an inspection shield with at least 3 checkpoints. One at the very beginning to make sure the raw materials are correct, another one during production to catch any problems early on, and then a final random inspection before anything gets packed into a shipping container. This is how you prevent those awful last-minute surprises. And your contract itself, it needs to be completely airtight. It has to include all your detailed specs and your AQL standards. It needs to have a clause that legally ties the quality of the big order to that golden sample you approved. And I cannot stress this enough, you need a specific type of legal agreement called an NNN. It needs to be written in Chinese, and it needs to be governed by Chinese law. A standard Western contract is basically unenforceable in a Chinese court. So what this all boils down to, really, is from all this. Let it be this. Platforms like Alibaba are just tools. They are search engines. They connect you with potential suppliers, but they are not a guarantee of quality or reliability or honesty. The responsibility for the due diligence, for the verification, for protecting yourself, ultimately, that falls on you, the buyer. Which really just leaves us with this one final question. Finding a supplier is the easy part. But after everything we've just gone through, ask yourself, have you really done everything you can to truly protect your investment, your brand, and your business? Really think about that.
Let's talk about something that seems, super simple, but actually causes huge headaches for businesses. What does it really take to legally sell a product like a standard toilet seat in Europe? It all comes down to product compliance, and we're about to clear up some major confusion. The big question: do standard plastic toilet seats actually need that famous CE certification to be sold in the European Union? It looks pretty straightforward, right? But believe me, this single question trips up so many companies trying to get into that massive EU market.
Let's dig into how this whole misunderstanding gets started and why it becomes such a common and, frankly, unnecessary roadblock for companies.
Let's talk about the standards that actually do guarantee quality and safety for this product.
The name you really need to know is DIN 1950-16. Now, technically, this is a German national standard, but it is so comprehensive and so well respected that it has basically become the unofficial benchmark for quality across all of Europe, and honestly, in many other parts of the world.
What the product is actually made of is governed by some of the European Union's strictest rules, and this is where a lot of importers can get into some really hot water. So this table shows you the real legal framework you need to be concerned with. But what's the big deal? Well, understanding this difference between the CE myth and the reality of DIN, REACH, and RoHS isn't just for bonus points. Getting it wrong can have serious consequences for your business.
Here's where things get really dicey. Because so many buyers who don't know any better keep asking for a CE mark, what do some suppliers do? They just fake one. They create a meaningless certificate to close the deal. And here's the scary part. The legal responsibility for that product falls on the importer. In the eyes of the law, a fake certificate is actually much, much worse than no certificate at all.
And these are the risks you're running. If you illegally put a CE mark on a product that shouldn't have one, you're misleading consumers. That can get your entire shipment stopped and seized by customs at the border. And if the product does get through, you could be looking at massive fines and a forced, very expensive product return.
Standard toilet seats, no CE mark needed. Smart toilets with electronics, yes, they absolutely need one. For physical quality, you should be looking for DIN 1950-16. For legal chemical safety, your focus has to be on REACH and RoHS. And maybe the biggest takeaway, demanding the wrong certification can put you in more legal trouble than you'd think.
And that brings us to a final thought to leave you with. Real product compliance isn't about collecting familiar logos or buzzwords. It's about doing the homework to understand the specific rules that apply to your specific product. So it's worth asking yourself, are you sure you're asking for the right compliance?
All right, if you're in the plumbing business, you probably think of certifications as, just another piece of red tape, a necessary evil. But what if we looked at it differently? What if those certifications weren't a hurdle, but were actually the master key to unlocking one of the biggest, most profitable markets in the world? You've got great products, toilets, faucets, maybe even those fancy smart bidet seats, and you want to sell them in North America. I mean, why wouldn't you? It is the largest market for this stuff on the planet. The opportunity is just massive. But, and it's a big but, before you even dream of filling that first shipping container, there's a huge question you got to answer first. You can't just waltz in and expect to get a piece of that action. Think of the entire market as being behind a series of locked doors, and to get through them, you need the right keys. Well, those keys, they're your product certifications. If you don't have them, that door to North America isn't just closed. It is locked, bolted, and sealed shut. The high cost of non-compliance. And believe me, this isn't just about annoying paperwork. The stakes here are incredibly high. We're talking about whether you can even do business at all. And I am not exaggerating here. One industry source put it perfectly, calling it a life or death prerequisite. Think about that. It's not just the nice to have. It literally determines if your product has a chance to succeed or if it's dead on arrival. Period. And now let's talk about the solution. Let's decode the actual certifications you need, the keys to the kingdom. All right, first up, and this is the big one, is cUPC. The C is for Canada, so this single mark covers both the US and Canada. Think of it as the gold standard for safety and performance. Its main job is to protect public health, to make sure your toilet isn't going to say, let wastewater backflow into the clean drinking water. Yikes. And let me be absolutely clear, this is not optional. You must have this. It's your ticket to entry, plain and simple. So you've got your main certifications. You'd think you're all set, right? Well, not so fast. The US isn't really one market. It's more like a patchwork quilt of 50 different rulebooks. So how does this happen? It goes back to what we just talked about with WaterSense. A state, maybe one with water scarcity issues, looks at this really solid federal program and just says, yep, that's our law now.
And just like that, what was a voluntary national guideline becomes a hard and fast rule you have to follow to sell anything in that is a lot to keep track of. So how do you actually manage all this? How do you make sure you don't mess up? Well, let's boil it all down into a super simple, actionable checklist. Number 1, use certified products. This has to be a hard rule. Always look for those cUPC, WaterSense, and electrical safety labels. 2, check local codes. And I mean local. Don't just stop at the state level. Sometimes a city has its own quirky rule. 3, get your documents organized. You need to be able to pull up those certification records in a snap. 4, work with qualified pros. Licensed plumbers live and breathe this stuff. They're your best friends in staying up to date. And number 5, keep an eye on things yourself. These rules change all the time, so follow the big agencies like the California Energy Commission to see what's coming down the pike. North America, compliance isn't just an add-on or a feature. It's the absolute foundation of your business. It's something you have to bake into your process from the very start. So that leaves you with one final, really important question to ask yourself. Is your supply chain built for compliance? All right, today we're diving into something you might not think about every day, but for anyone in procurement, it's a huge deal. The toilets. It's not just a small inconvenience. It comes with some serious hidden costs that go way beyond just buying a replacement. Yeah, we're talking about some pretty significant risks to protect yourself from all that. Well, luckily, there's a global benchmark out there designed for this exact purpose, to guarantee that structural integrity and make sure a product is built for the long haul. And that benchmark is called DIN 1915. Now, it did start out as a German standard, but today it's pretty much the go-to, the global language for what makes a quality toilet seat. It spells out, in very precise detail, exactly what requirements and, get this, what brutal testing methods a product has to survive to earn that high-quality label. The actual mechanical torture tests that DIN 19516 demands. This is where a product either proves it's tough enough, or it literally gets broken trying. What you're looking at here, this is the actual machinery. These aren't just concepts. They're highly precise, engineered rigs built to apply very specific, very repeatable forces to find a product's exact breaking point. Okay, first up is the static load dust. Massive. We're talking about 175 kilograms of direct, constant force. That's almost 400 pounds. To help you picture that, imagine 2 grown men standing on the toilet seat lid. The standard says that seat has to hold that entire weight for 3 solid minutes without breaking. And the rules for passing are incredibly tight. After those 3 minutes, under all that pressure, there can't be any cracks, no breaks to sudden dynamic force. This is what I call the relentless impact test. It's all about simulating years and years of rough handling, accidental drops, and sharp impacts. This little diagram here shows you the basic idea. You've got a heavy weight positioned right over the seat, and it's designed to be dropped over and over onto the exact same spot. It mimics all the harsh, repetitive hits that happen in the real world. And you won't believe the number of impacts. This isn't just a few drops to see what happens. We're talking 15,000 cycles, minimum. This test isn't about surviving one little accident. It's about proving its resilience over the long haul. So here's how it works. A 75-kilogram weight, that's about 165 pounds, is dropped from a height of 30 millimeters right onto the seat ring. And it does this 10 to 15 times a minute for at least 15,000 cycles. It's designed to prove the seat can handle a lifetime of abuse without cracking. And number here is less than 10 millimeters. That's it. That is the absolute maximum amount of sideways wobble or shift that's allowed when it's put under a pretty heavy side load. A sideways force of 300 newtons gets applied to the seat ring. Now that's roughly like pulling on it with 30 kilograms or about 66 pounds. And even with all that shearing force, the seat is not allowed to shift more than 10 millimeters. Conversation. You stop hoping for quality and start demanding verifiable proof of it. You get to procure with total confidence. So the takeaway here is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. First, always specify compliance with DIN 1950-16 in your requests for quotation. Second, demand the full certified test report from your supplier. Don't just take their word for it. And finally, just understand that this standard is your shield. It's your guarantee that you're buying a product that's safe, durable, and actually worthy of your brand. So we'll leave you with this thought. Your company's reputation is built on thousands of little details, just like this one. The real question is your procurement process strong enough to stand up to the test? You've seen it everywhere, right? That antibacterial label slapped on a product. And you've probably had that little thought in the back of your mind, is this actually doing anything? Is it real science, or is it just a clever marketing trick? Well, you're not alone in wondering that. So in this explainer, we're going to get super specific and dive deep into one particular product, the antibacterial toilet seat. We're going to unpack the science, look at the official tests, and even expose some of the hidden tricks of the trade, all to answer one big question. Is this a gimmick, or is it a gold standard you can actually trust? This is where we get into the cool science. The go-to technology for these products uses something you've definitely heard of, but maybe not like this. Silver. Yeah, silver. So let's see how these little microscopic assassins get the job done. This secret weapon is what's called silver ion technology. We're talking about incredibly tiny, positively charged particles of silver, they call them Ag+ ions, that are mixed right into the plastic when the toilet seat is made. And this isn't some brand new, unproven idea. It's based on a well-known scientific fact that silver is a seriously powerful germ killer. But how can you, the customer, be sure it actually works on the product you're about to buy? Well, for that, there's a global standard. Think of it as a brutal 24-hour gauntlet that any product making this claim has to survive. And that benchmark has a name, ISO 22196. You're going to want to remember that. It's the internationally agreed upon test for measuring antibacterial power on plastics. This is the test that separates the real deal from just marketing fluff. And the standard they set is ridiculously high. To pass, a product can't just slow down bacteria. Nope, it has to prove it can kill more than 99% of them. Getting that number is no joke, because the test is designed to be an absolute worst-case scenario. So we've got a super tough, verifiable standard. The story should end there, right? We all go home happy. Unfortunately, this is where it gets messy. This is where we have to talk about a sneaky practice called the golden sample fraud. Here's how the scam works. A factory makes a perfect golden sample. It's packed with the full and very expensive dose of silver ions. It's designed to pass that ISO 22196 test with flying colors. But then, for the mass production run, the products that actually end up in stores, they cut way back on that active ingredient, or sometimes they remove it completely, all to save a buck. So here's the bottom line. You, the customer, buy a product that has an antibacterial label, maybe even a legit-looking test report, but the item in your hands has none of that protection. It is a classic bait and switch, and it's a really serious kind of fraud that's almost impossible for an everyday person to spot. And right in the middle of this big conflict, the technology is real, but the fraud is also real. So how are we supposed to tell the difference between a legit, certified product and an empty marketing gimmick? What's the real answer here? Let's just put it side by side. A gimmick is based on that one golden sample test. It relies on a single misleading report, and the final product you buy has barely any active ingredient, if any at all. All it gives you is a false sense of security. A certified standard, though, is based on a tough, repeatable process. It requires proof of ongoing compliance, contains the full effective dose of silver ions, and it delivers that proven greater than 99% bacterial kill rate. So what's the final verse this mean for you when you're shopping? Well, first, look for a specific mention of ISO 22196 certification, not just fuzzy claims. Second, it's probably wise to trust reputable brands that have a long history and a reputation to protect. Be really skeptical of vague words like antimicrobial or germ-resistant if there's no proof behind them. And just remember, real antibacterial performance is an engineered, certified feature. It's not just a sticker on a box. You know, we started this by asking if the antibacterial label was fact or fiction. And the answer is, it can be both. It all depends on whether a company is actually committing to that tough international standard or if they're just committing fraud. Which leaves us with one final thought. Now that you know to look past the... All right, let's just jump right in. We all know e-commerce is just massive, right? It feels like this incredible opportunity for anyone selling online. But here's the thing. There's a dark side, a really expensive and honestly brutal secret hiding behind every add to cart button that can absolutely tank your business. I mean, you know the feeling. You've been waiting for that package to arrive, you finally get it, you rip it open, and nope, it's broken, shattered, just completely useless. As a buyer, it's a huge pain. But if you're the one who sold it, that moment is your absolute worst nightmare come to life. And when we say brutal system actually look like for somebody trying to run a business? Let's get into the real-world consequences. So this journey is way tougher on some products than others. Think about things made from what's called UF resin. That's urea-formaldehyde. You see it in stuff like high-end toilet seats because it has this nice, premium, almost ceramic feel to it. But, just like ceramic, it has a big weakness. It's super brittle. So when a package with something like that inside gets dropped, you don't just get a little dent. You get a catastrophic failure. The whole thing just shatters. So how bad can it? Sellers bleeding money, the biggest names in the game, your Amazons, your Wayfairs, they basically said enough is enough. And they did what they do best. They made a new set of rules and put all the responsibility right back onto the sellers. Now, to get what they're demanding, you have to know a key acronym, SIOC. It stands for Ships in Own Container. This is basically Amazon's holy grail. They want your product to show up at their fulfillment center already perfectly boxed up, so all they have to do is slap a shipping label on it and send it out. No extra Amazon box needed. And this isn't just so what is this ISTA test that's become the gatekeeper for the entire e-commerce world? ISTA is the organization that sets the rules. It's the International Safe Transit Association. They're the ones who create all these standardized tests to see if a package can actually do its job. Basically, they're the global authority. And when your package gets their stamp of approval, it actually means something. So, those tests we mentioned, the 3A and 6A, are designed to do one thing: replicate that uncontrolled and brutal journey we were just talking about. They are, essentially, a simulation of the absolute worst day your package could ever have. And the key thing to remember is, they aren't testing your product. They're testing your packaging's ability to protect it. Okay, so let's peek inside the test lab. This is where the magic, or the tragedy, happens. It's where your package proves it's either a fortress or just a flimsy piece of cardboard. The whole test is basically a 3-part gauntlet. First up is the drop test, a whole sequence of them from every angle imaginable. If your package somehow survives that, it gets strapped onto a vibration table that simulates the bumpiest truck ride of its life. And for the grand finale, it gets squeezed with incredible force to mimic being buried under a mountain of other boxes in a warehouse. Your product has to come out of all that completely unharmed to pass. Let's be real, all that torture, you're left with one of two results: pass or fail. And for your business, the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. Look at the two paths here. You fail, and you're dealing with those insane return rates we talked about. Your inventory gets rejected by Amazon, your brand's reputation gets trashed. But if you pass, well, now you're protecting your profit. You've got guaranteed access to these massive marketplaces. And you're building trust and getting great reviews with every single box that arrives safely. The choice is pretty obvious, isn't it? So at the end of the day, one final question you have to ask yourself if you're selling anything online. Knowing everything it has to go through, is your packaging an asset that's actually protecting you? Or is it a liability, just waiting to cost you everything?
You know that feeling, right? You order something nice, something premium, and it shows up completely shattered. It feels so solid, it looks beautiful, but somehow it just can't survive the mail. Well, this is the premium paradox, and we're going to break down exactly how to solve it. I mean, it's just so frustrating, and for any online business.
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to start with the materials themselves. This is where you see this clash, right? The premium feel versus the cold, hard reality of shipping.
So on one side, you've got your standard polypropylene, or PP. It's, flexible, pretty lightweight, and easy on the wallet, kind of your everyday workhorse. But then, you've got urea-formaldehyde, or UF. And this stuff, this is the premium option. And honestly, when you see it, you totally get why. This stuff, urea-formaldehyde product. Now, let's see what happens when we throw it into the meat grinder that is modern e-commerce shipping.
Yeah, this is the side of things your customers never get to see. Your package isn't carefully carried, it's launched down high-speed conveyor belts, slammed around by sorting machines, dropped into bins, and just tossed into trucks. It's not a gentle journey, not at all. It's a full-on survival course.
And believe it or not, there's actually a name for this whole ordeal. It's called the ISTA 3A test.
This trial by fire actually look like? Well, first, they put it on a machine that creates random vibrations, to mimic a long, bumpy truck ride. Then they do compression testing, basically to see if it can survive being crushed at the bottom of a giant stack of other boxes. But the real killer, the thing that causes the most damage, that's the drop test. We're talking about a series of drops from up to 1.5 meters. That is almost 5 feet high. And they're not dropping it on a soft mat. It's straight onto solid concrete. They drop it flat on its face, on its edges, and right on its most vulnerable corners. Again and again and again.
And this is what failure looks like. What's your first instinct? What's the most obvious thing to do?
Right. Just add more padding. Bury the thing in a big, thick layer of foam. It seems so simple. A total brute force approach that makes perfect sense. But this so-called obvious solution leads you right into a hidden financial trap.
And here it is. Forced method is a money pit. What's the smart way to do this? Well, it's not about stuffing your box. It's all about engineering.
Just look at the two approaches here, side by side. On the left, you've got the brute force method, just filling up all the empty space with padding. But the engineered solution on the right, it doesn't just fill the space, it uses that space intelligently. It's all about structure, not stuffing.
The big idea here is suspension. Think about it. Instead of just padding the product so it hits the side of the box softly, the real goal is to stop it from ever hitting the sides at all. You actually engineer empty space around it. They call it a crush zone, and that zone is what absorbs the force of any impact.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. This fancy engineered packaging has to cost more per unit for the materials, right? And it does, a little. So how on earth does it actually save you money and come out on top in the long run? Well, this table really breaks it all down. So yeah, the engineered packaging costs a bit more upfront. We're looking at $2.35 versus $1.50. But look at the very next line, shipping. Because the box is smaller and smarter, you save $4 per shipment. And here's the real kicker. Your damage costs, they basically disappear. They go from $2 per unit all the way down to just 20 cents. So when you add it all up, the total cost for the smart engineered solution is almost $5 cheaper for every single unit you ship.
So the takeaway here is actually pretty simple. You invest a little more in smart design on the front end, and you save an absolute fortune on the back end. You're not just buying a box, you're buying a successful delivery. And that is how you solve the premium paradigm.
Brings up a much bigger idea, doesn't it? This whole principle of looking at the total cost, not just the sticker price, it applies to way more than just packaging. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Where else in your business, or heck, even in your own life, is the cheapest option actually the one that's costing you the most? You know, we've got smart everything these days, our phones, our homes, even our refrigerators. But there's one room that seems stuck in the past, the bathroom. So here's the question I've been thinking about. Why isn't the smart toilet seat, with all its amazing tech, in every single home? Let's dive in and figure it out. I mean, think about it.
It's this fascinating mix of practical problems, financial realities, and some surprisingly deep psychological barriers. It's way more complex than just deciding to buy a new gadget.
But before we get into all the roadblocks, let's just take a moment to appreciate what's actually being offered here. We're not just talking about some fancy bells and whistles. This is being pitched as benefits. What's the first thing that stops people in their tracks? It's the practical stuff. It's that moment when this futuristic piece of tech has to actually fit into our very non-futuristic bathrooms. And this is where the dream hits a wall. First off, who has a power outlet right next to their toilet?
Before it can even start, the price tag.
Yep. For a lot of the high-end models, you're looking at over $1,000. When you can just go out and buy a regular old plastic seat for $30, this isn't just an upgrade anymore. It's a major household investment.
And this chart really puts that into perspective. You see that huge jump from the standard seat. Now, while those $1,000 models get all the attention, most of the action, about 3/4 of all sales actually, is in that $300 to $650 range, which is still a pretty big leap from $30. So manufacturers know this price is a huge problem. And their answer? Retrofit kits. The idea is simple. Instead of replacing your whole toilet, you can add some of the key features, like a bidet and a heated seat, to the one you already have.
Should be a done deal, right? Well, this is where we hit the biggest, most complicated hurdle of all. And it has nothing to do with plumbing or money, it's all in our heads. We're talking about trust, anxiety, and the privacy of the most personal room in the house. This quote really hits the nail on the head. For so many of us, the bathroom is a sanctuary. It's one of the only places we can be completely, totally alone. The idea of bringing in a device that is actively watching and collecting data in there, well, it feels like an invasion. It can feel less like healthcare and more like surveillance.
And that brings up another really powerful point. That promise of health monitoring, it can easily turn into a source of constant anxiety. I mean, imagine getting an alert about some kind of anomaly. Is it a real health problem?
Or did you just eat something weird for dinner? Instead of giving you peace of mind, this constant flow of data could just create a cycle of stress and worry.
Does this mean the smart toilet is doomed to be a niche luxury item forever? Well, not necessarily. The industry is very aware of these problems and is actually working on ways to overcome every single one of them.
So what's the path forward? It's a pretty clear three-step plan. First, they have to solve the practical problem. Make installation so easy, it's like changing a light bulb. Second, they have to close that price gap with more affordable models and those retrofit kits. And third, and this is the most important one, they have to earn our trust. That means designing these things for privacy from the very beginning and giving us, the users, complete control over our own data.
And that brings us to the big question. Think about the microwave oven. It was once this weird, expensive, futuristic gadget. Now, you can't imagine a kitchen without one. Can the smart toilet make that same leap from a high-tech curiosity to an everyday essential? The answer really depends on whether the companies making them can solve not just the technical puzzles, but these very, very human hurdles.
Welcome. Today, we are diving deep into the surprisingly complex world behind a product you see every single day, but probably don't think too much about: the toilet seat. But you know, for a professional buyer, this isn't just some simple accessory. It's a product of material science, and making the right choice, well, that can make or break your bottom line.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get into the hidden complexities of this everyday item. Then, we're going to tackle the two key materials that pretty much define the entire market. After that, we'll look at the benchmarks for quality, figure out how to properly vet a manufacturing partner, and we'll wrap it all up with a really practical checklist you can use right away. Okay, first up, let's talk about why that seems so simple can turn into a massive headache for a business. It's really about looking past the porcelain bowl and focusing on the part that gets the most use and the most complaints.
And that's a fair question, right? But it's one that a lot of businesses have learned the answer to the hard way. See, if you just source based on the lowest price, you can kick off a whole chain of nightmares. Seats cracking under normal use, weird discoloration happening way too soon, and then comes the flood of angry customer calls and warranty claims. That stuff can seriously hurt your brand's reputation.
So here's the bottom line. Pretty much every factor, from performance and price, right down to how complex it is to make, it all boils down to one single choice. It's a decision between two very different types of polymers. Each one has its own unique properties and manufacturing process, and they are definitely not interchangeable.
And that big decision brings us right to the heart of this explainer: the great material divide. And listen, this isn't just a tiny detail. This is the key decision that dictates everything about your final product: how it feels, how long it lasts, and of course, how much it costs.
On one side, you've got urea-formaldehyde, which most people just call UF or Duraplast. Now, this is a thermosetting resin. The easiest way to think about it is like baking a cake. Once you mix the ingredients and you heat them up, a chemical change happens and it sets for good. You can't just melt it down and try to make it into something else. And that whole process is what gives it that really hard, glossy, almost ceramic-like finish.
And then on the other side, you have polypropylene, or PP. This is a thermoplastic. So if UF is a cake, PP is more like chocolate. You can melt it, pour it into a mold, and it will harden, and you can do it again and again. That property is what makes it so much more flexible, super lightweight, and way more resistant to cracking if it gets dropped or hit.
So right here, you can really see the core trade-off for any buyer. If your target is that high-end, premium market, then the ceramic feel and scratch resistance of UF is absolutely the way to go. But if you're outfitting a busy hotel or maybe targeting a more budget-conscious customer, the durability and lower cost of PP make it the obvious practical choice.
Material is the foundation, but it is not the whole story. You can have the best material in the world and still end up with a terrible product if you don't have strict quality standards. So let's look at the benchmarks that really separate a world-class product from all the rest.
For any B2B buyer who wants to sell in places like North America or Europe, these certifications, they're not optional. They're your ticket in. And today, this goes way beyond just durability. It's more and more about chemical safety, especially with new rules coming for things like PFAS, those forever chemicals. That's raising the bar for everyone.
This number, 150 kilograms, is absolutely critical. It comes from the German DIN 1950-16 standard, which is one of the toughest in Europe. It means the seat has to be able to handle a static load of 150 kilos, that's about 330 pounds, without cracking or breaking. It's a fundamental test of whether the product is built to last.
Quick run-through of this alphabet soup of certifications. DIN 1950-16 proves it's durable. The CE mark gets you into Europe.
The cUPC mark is a must-have for the North American plumbing market. And then you have things like ISO 9001 and BSCI, which show you're working with a professional, ethical company. And you got to remember, this list is always changing.
You know the standards it has to meet. Now for the big question. How do you find the right partner to actually make it? This is all about looking past the shiny product sheet and figuring out who is truly reliable.
You know, a manufacturer's history tells you a lot. Decades of experience, like you see in this quote from Hen Yuen, means they have a deep, hard-won knowledge of materials, of quality control, of making things run smoothly. A partner with that kind of experience has probably seen and already solved every single problem you could possibly imagine.
Now this is what you really need to be looking for. Don't settle for vague promises. You need to ask them for their specific, step-by-step process for what happens when something goes wrong. A clear, robust system like this one from BWill, that shows you they're accountable. It means they track their batches, they keep samples, and they stand behind their product with a real plan.
And the warranty, it's so much more than just a marketing gimmick. It's a direct signal of how confident
International standards. So let's pull all this essential info together into one practical tool that you can literally use on your next call with a supplier.
And here it is, your strategic buyer's checklist. Seriously, forget starting the conversation with price. Lead with these questions instead. Their answers are going to tell you everything you need to know about their quality, their reliability, and whether they're a good long-term partner. And with new regulations hitting in 2026, you absolutely have to add one more question. Can you guarantee and provide documentation that your resins and coatings are 100% PFAS free?
And that really is the final, most important point. It's about changing how you see this product. Stop seeing it as a simple commodity and start seeing it as an engineered product born from material science and proven by serious quality control. Making that shift in perspective, that's what separates a tactical, price-based purchase from a strategic, value-driven partnership that will build a stronger and more resilient business. And that right there.
All right, let's talk about something we all use every single day, but probably don't think about much, the toilet seat. That is, until it starts to fail. Today, we're diving into a real battle between that classic, timeless style and the harsh reality of, well, a bathroom. Specifically, can that beautiful wooden toilet seat you've been eyeing actually last?
And you can totally see the appeal, right? Really get into why wood is having such a moment. Why are we so drawn to putting this material in a room that's literally full of water?
Well, it really comes down to how it makes us feel. This quote just nails it. We're trying to turn our bathrooms from these sterile, functional spaces into, personal sanctuaries. Wood gives you that sense of calm, that connection to the outdoors. And let's be honest, it just feels warmer and more substantial, more luxurious than plain old plastic.
And this is not some
all bought into the dream. Now it's time to talk about the nightmare scenario that way too many homeowners run into, the cold, hard reality of rot.
You can just feel the frustration in this question, can't you? This is a real complaint, and it gets right to the heart of the problem. You spend money on this beautiful new fixture, and in just a year, it's a yellow, cracked mess. This is the fear that's behind this whole debate. Is putting wood in the bathroom just a fundamentally bad idea? So,
can actually avoid this ugly fate, we've got to put it head-to-head with the other options. So, it is time for a material showdown.
At a glance, the choice seems pretty simple, right? Wood feels premium, it feels warm. Plastic is practical, it's cheap. But, the devil's always in the details, and not all woods, or plastics for that matter, are created equal. So, let's break it down a little further. Okay, this chart tells the whole story. Up at the top, you've got Duraplast, a super dense plastic. It is the king of durability. We're talking a 10+ year lifespan, super scratch resistant. Then right in the middle, here's our guy, enameled wood. Lifespan, about 5 to 7 years. Scratch resistance is okay. But look at hygiene. It's only good if that seal stays intact. That's the key. And at the bottom, you've got your basic polypropylene plastic. Cheapest, but also the least durable. So you can see enameled wood is trying to be the best of both worlds, but its entire existence depends on that one fragile seal.
So that seal is enameled wood. For solid wood, it's the most important part. But how exactly does it fail? We've got to get into the science here, because if you understand how it breaks, you can understand how to prevent it.
It's like a domino effect. It all starts with these tiny little micro scratches on the surface, maybe from a harsh cleaning brush or even just the button on your jeans. Once that seal has the tiniest breach, moisture gets in and soaks into the wood fibers underneath. And what does wood do when it gets wet? It swells up. That swelling pushes up from the inside, which causes the enamel coating to crack and peel off. And just like that, you've got a breach in the wall. The moisture is trapped, bacteria and mold have a new home, and it's pretty much game over for your toilet seat.
It sounds pretty for wood, doesn't it? But hold on, that's not quite the end of the story. Manufacturers are totally aware of this catastrophic failure, and now they're fighting back with technology.
And this is where it gets really interesting. We're seeing a full-on tech counterattack. First, you've got these advanced nano-sealants. Think of it like multiple super thin layers of a really tough, moisture-resistant varnish that create a much stronger barrier. Then, some of the top brands have developed what they call waterproof slim designs. They use a new process that completely seals up the wood core, so there are no seams or weak spots for water to sneak in. And this new tech is reportedly pushing the lifespan of these seats past that 7-year mark.
So we've seen the dream, we've seen the reality, and we've seen the new tech. It is time to bring it all together and finally answer our big question. Is an enameled wood toilet seat a buy-it-for-life investment, or is it a classic case of buyer beware?
Okay, let's be totally direct. For your standard run-of-the-mill enameled wood seat you pick up at the hardware store, the answer is no. Its typical lifespan is 5 to 7 years. Now that's not bad, but it is definitely not for life. The idea of a wooden seat that lasts forever is not the default reality.
But, and this is a huge but, you can absolutely stack the deck in your favor. If you want that wood look with the best possible durability, you have to be a smart shopper. Look for those keywords we just talked about: nano-sealant, waterproof, and don't forget the hardware. Hinges are a major point of failure, so look for high-grade stainless steel. And if you really want to be sure, look for a DEN 1915-16 certification. That's a super strict European standard that tests for long-term durability.
So here's the bottom line. The gap between style and durability is closing, but it's not gone completely. New technology is making wood a much better option than it used to be, but it means you, the buyer, have to do your homework. So the final question is really for you. When you make your next choice, what's your priority? Are you investing in a look for right now, or are you going to hunt for that perfect mix of beautiful style and true, long-lasting durability? The choice is all yours.
You ever stop and think about the engineering marvel you use every single day? Yeah, probably not. But you know what? That humble toilet seat is actually a battleground of advanced materials, super precise mechanics, and $1 billion global competition. So today, we're going to lift the lid, literally, on the secrets of your throne. Let's dive in. That horrible, heart-stopping slam in the middle of the night, or that annoying little side-to-side wobble that just will not quit. You tighten the bolts, and what happens? A week later, it's loose all over again. It's one of the most common frustrations in any home. But is it just bad luck, or is something else going on? Well, if you think it's just you, you're not even clear here, and what can we do about it? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break it all down. We'll see why it's more than just a seat, we'll explore the hidden science and tech, we'll look at the huge companies competing for your bathroom, and most importantly, we'll arm you with everything you need to know to choose the perfect one. All right, first things first, we've got to bust the biggest myth out there, that a toilet seat is just a toilet seat. No way. The reality is, it's a minefield of common issues that drive people absolutely nuts. You know, if you look through thousands of consumer reviews, a really clear pattern shows up. Almost half of all the complaints are just because the seat didn't fit right in the first place. Another 20% come from people who just plain struggled to install the thing. And that's before we even get to the classics, the slamming, the wobbling, and the mystery cracks and stains. So what is going on here? Well, believe it or not, the answers to all those frustrations, they're found in the massive global industry. So let's zoom out from the mechanics in your bathroom to the huge market that spans from a factory floor in China all the way to your local hardware store. In a market this big, how do you ensure quality? Well, that's where tough standards come in, like this one, the German DIN 1950-16. To get this stamp of approval, a toilet seat has to survive a brutal series of tests. We're talking intense stress tests, chemical resistance, the whole 9 yards. It's basically the gold standard for proving a seat is built to last. And this push for quality is really driven by a handful of giant global companies. You've got Toto, the undisputed king of bidet tech, with their famous washlet. Then you have Kohler, who's all in on smart home stuff with app-controlled seats.
And then there are giants like Lixil, who owns American Standard, and Roca, who focuses on things like antibacterial materials. It's their competition that pushes all the innovation we get to see.
An expert in toilet seat science and the global market. Awesome. Let's put that knowledge to work. Here is how you can finally choose the right seat and never deal with a wobbly, slamming nightmare ever again. Now, if you remember only one thing from all of this, please make it this. Toilet seats are not universal. I'm telling you, this one simple misunderstanding is the reason behind nearly half of all those bad reviews we talked about. But don't worry, avoiding this mistake is super easy. You just need 2 measurements. First, grab a tape measure. Measure from the middle of the 2 little bolt holes at the back, straight to the very front edge of the bowl. If it's about 16.5 inches, you've got a round bowl. If it's closer to 18.5, you've got an elongated one. Then just measure between the 2 bolt holes. It's almost always the standard 5.5 inches. That's it. You're ready.
So here it is, your 4-step plan to toilet seat nirvana. 1. Measure your bowl. Just do it. 2. Pick your material. Do you want the durable, budget-friendly polypropylene or the premium, scratch-proof Duroplast? 3. Demand better features. A soft close is a must, and trust me, a quick-release hinge for easy cleaning is a total game changer. And 4. Check the hardware. Always go for stainless steel if you can. It'll save you so much hassle later on. Your trend. As one industry report recently said, the bathroom is no longer viewed as a purely utilitarian space, but as a personal wellness retreat. We're starting to care more about comfort, hygiene, and tech in these spaces than we ever have before.
Which leads to one last thought to leave you with. With things like heated seats, built-in bidets, and even self-sanitizing UV lights becoming more common, the toilet seat is changing. It's going from a simple piece of plastic to a full-on smart wellness device. So the real question for the future isn't just about how to avoid a wobbly seat, but what exactly you want your throne to be. Thanks for watching.
Okay, let's dive into one of the most common, and let's be honest, one of the most frustrating household problems out there. And more importantly, we're going to look at the clever engineering that finally solves it for good, right? You sit down, and there it is, that annoying, persistent wobble. That little shift that just makes you think, not this again. But you know, that minor wiggle is actually more than just a nuisance. Why does this keep happening over and over again? Well, a big part of the answer lies in the design of modern toilets, which often have what's called a blind hole installation. Okay, now this slide is where it gets really interesting. It's like a hardware showdown. On the left, you see the usual suspect, the expanding rubber nut. It's the standard so-called fix for those blind hole toilets where you just can't reach underneath. And on the right, a totally different beast, an engineered, proprietary toggle bolt system. That design on the left, that's the root of the whole problem.
So why do these expanding nuts always fail? Well, it's pretty simple. They just rely on friction. But the plastic and rubber bits, they degrade over time. They compress, they lose their grip inside the porcelain. The design just isn't engineered to handle the constant, uneven pressure of daily use, year in and year out.
Let's move on to the solution and see how some brilliant engineering has completely rethought how a toilet seat should attach to the bowl and how to solve this problem for good.
The big idea here is a complete shift away from those simple friction-based rubber nuts to fully engineered systems. These aren't just stronger bolts, they're clever mechanisms that use mechanical advantage, physics, to lock themselves into place. Once they're in, they are not moving.
A perfect example of this new way of thinking is a proprietary technology called
Style design. Instead of just pushing outwards against the hole, it actually flips open underneath the porcelain and pulls up, creating an incredibly secure mechanical lock. It's so robust, it passes the super tough DIN 1915-16 side movement test. That's an industry benchmark that proves it can withstand years of real-world use without budging one bit.
Angled toggle bolt technology actually deliver in the real world. Let's look at the proof, because the feedback, well, it's absolutely conclusive.
And here is your answer. In a survey of over 100 households, a staggering 92% of people who switched to a no-loosen system called it their single most important and satisfying upgrade. 92%. That's not just a minor improvement, that's a total game changer.
And this homeowner review, it just perfectly illustrates that feeling of relief doesn't take away from all this. Why does this one seemingly small upgrade matter so much in the grand scheme of things?
Well, the payoff goes way beyond just getting rid of a wobble. First, you get unmatched stability, which is a real safety issue, especially for kids or in any kind of care setting. Second, you get improved hygiene. No movement means no hidden gaps for grime and gross stuff to build up. And finally, you get asset protection. You're preventing costly damage to both the seat and the toilet bowl.
So whether you're a homeowner who is just plain fed up with that wiggle, or a facility manager who is tired of constant maintenance calls, the conclusion is the same. This is a small investment that delivers huge long-term value.
Question. That wobbly seat isn't just an annoyance. It's a clear signal that a component is failing. So when you go to fix it, are you just going to reset the clock on the same old problem? Or are you going to invest in a permanent solution? It really makes you think about the true cost of a cheap fix. Not just here, but, well, everywhere.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a topic that honestly could save you a ton of money and headaches, not to mention protect your hard-earned reputation. We're talking about picking the right stainless steel, especially when you're building near the coast.
So let's get right into it.
We're not just talking about a little rust making things look ugly. No, hardware corrosion can lead to complete failure. Think about it. Hinges seizing up, doors that won't close properly. This means you're getting those dreaded callbacks, dealing with unhappy clients, and taking a real hit to your brand and your reputation for doing quality work.
When you're specifying hardware, you're almost always going to come across these two options: stainless steel 304 and stainless steel 316.
Now, if you just look at them, they seem pretty much identical. But how they perform when the pressure is on, totally different stories. SS304, that's your everyday workhorse. It's cost-effective, it's the industry standard, and for most indoor jobs, it's great. But SS316, well, that's the heavy hitter. It's engineered specifically to fight the toughest battles. We're talking against salt and constant moisture.
And you can see just how common 304 is. I mean, it is everywhere. From your kitchen sink to the handles on your doors, its value is amazing, and its general resistance to corrosion is perfectly fine for most indoor situations. But its biggest strength has a critical weakness, a sort of kryptonite when you introduce one specific element. And that else here. What's going on under the hood? Well, it turns out the massive difference in performance comes down to one single, powerful element that basically gives SS316 a suit of armor against rust.
And here it is, molybdenum, or Moly for short. This is the secret weapon. This is what gives 316 its marine-grade superpower. It's specifically built to fight off chloride ions, the nasty little things in salt spray that eat away at metal. You see, chlorides cause something called pitting, which are these tiny, invisible holes that can grow and lead to a total structural failure in standard stainless steel.
Chemistry table, right? The engineering world has a standardized, totally data-driven way to prove which one is tougher.
So how do they actually test this stuff? The industry uses something called a salt spray test, and it's just as intense as it sounds. They basically create a hurricane in a box, blasting the hardware with this super corrosive salt fog to simulate years and years of harsh coastal weather in just a few days. It completely takes the guesswork out of it and gives you cold, hard data.
Now this chart, this is your roadmap. The EN1670 standard is a lifesaver because it links the test results directly to real-world situations. It's so clear. A hinge for a bedroom? Grade 1 is fine. But look what happens when you get to a coastal project. You're immediately jumping all the way to a grade 4 or even a grade 5. There is zero ambiguity here. And to put that grade 5 rating into perspective, we're talking about 480 continuous hours. That is 20 straight days of being hammered by a relentless salt fog. It is so brutal that a lot of manufacturers won't even try the test. If a piece of hardware passes this, you know it's the absolute gold standard for durability in the toughest environments on the planet. Period.
Look to the data, let's get to the final verdict. How do you actually choose the right hinge for the job?
Okay, it really just boils down to this simple 4-step guide. First, define your environment. Easy enough. Is it coastal? Then step 2 is you must specify a grade 4 or 5, and that means you're specifying SS316. But honestly, the most critical step here is the last one. Always demand the proof. Don't just take your supplier's word for it. Ask to see that EN1670 test certificate. Make them show you the data. I love this quote because it just frames the whole decision perfectly. Choosing the right material isn't just another line item. It's not optional. It is a fundamental, foundational part of the building's long-term integrity and your promise of quality to your client.
The elephant in the room, the cost. And yes, there is a difference. SS316 is roughly 40% more expensive than 304.
And that's largely because of that precious molybdenum and a higher nickel content.
Which really just leaves us with one final thought, one final question. When you're building in a harsh coastal environment, is saving 40% today really worth risking your entire reputation tomorrow? Because that extra cost, it isn't really a cost at all. It's insurance. It's an investment in quality and reliability, and at the end of the day, it's an investment in the very reputation that you have worked so hard to build.
Okay, let's be honest. We have all been there. You need a new toilet seat, you run to the store, you grab one that looks right, and when you get home, it doesn't fit. Not even close. It is one of the most common and weirdly frustrating home improvement experiences. Why is this so hard? It's a lid for a toilet. You'd think it would be one of the most standardized, simple things in our homes, but instead, it causes so much confusion and way too many return trips to the store. If you've ever felt that pain, trust me, you are not alone. And you know, at the very heart of this whole problem is the single biggest complaint. Well, it all starts with a very common but completely false assumption. It's this idea that you can just grab any seat off the shelf because, well, they're all the same, right? This is what we're calling the myth of the universal fit. Let's just put this myth to bed once and for all with a little help from the experts on one of the most popular, but also one of the most problematic of these modern designs, the D-shape. It's right at the center of so many of these compatibility headaches, and we're about to find out exactly why. So what is a D-shaped seat anyway? Well, it's this really elegant blend of a straight back and a curved front, kind of like the letter D. And it's super popular because it gives bathrooms this clean, modern, almost luxurious feel. But that sleek design, which is interpreted differently by dozens of manufacturers, is hiding a world of completely getting worse, especially in the age of online shopping. The rise of e-commerce has basically thrown another huge wrench into the works for anyone just trying to find the right fit. Now, you might think pretty much everyone is buying home goods like toilet seats online these days, but the numbers tell a really different story. In 2023, a whopping 85% of all retail sales in the US still happen in person at a physical store, and that tells us something really important about how we shop for our homes. And here's why that number is so high. You have to be a victim of this online guessing game. There is a way to get it right the very first time. So let's pivot from the problem to the solution. Here's your clear, actionable guide, the 4-point fit check. Okay, so before you even think about clicking buy, you need to grab a tape measure. First, measure the hinge distance. That's the space between the center of the two mounting holes. Second, measure the total length, from the middle of those holes all the way to the very front of the bowl. Third, measure the total width at its absolute widest point. And finally, just confirm the overall shape. Armed with these 4 simple measurements, you can buy online with total confidence. World of the D-shaped toilet seat. What have we learned? Let's do a quick recap of the most important points to remember. First, and most importantly, say it with me. Toilet seats are not universal. Just burn that idea from your memory. Second, remember that modern designs, especially the D-shape, have huge variations in their key dimensions. Third, buying online is risky because you can't physically check the fit. And finally, the solution is in your hands. Always, always take those 4 critical measurements before you buy. This entire explainer was about a household item that seems so simple. But if getting a toilet seat right requires this much detective work, it really makes you wonder, what other products are we all buying online completely in the dark, just crossing our fingers and hoping they'll be the right fit? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining me.
You know that sound, right? That sudden, jarring slam of a toilet seat in the middle of the night. It's more than just an annoyance. For manufacturers and suppliers, that sound, well, that's the sound of a major business problem. It's a sign of a product failure that is quietly draining profits and really damaging brand reputations. So let me ask you this. What do you think is really behind all those 1-star reviews? I mean, for anyone managing products or buying for a business in this space, it's a super critical question. Is it, a bad finish, a poor fit, or is it something else entirely? Well, the real answer is something that often gets overlooked.
That's right, the number one culprit. The thing that's causing all these customer complaints and these really costly returns, it's not some basic flaw. It's the failure of the very feature that's supposed to be a luxury upgrade, the soft close mechanism. That's kind of ironic, isn't it? The silent hero becomes the loud, expensive villain.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First up, let's really get into the financial impact here, because this isn't just about a few unhappy customers. No, this is a systemic issue that has a direct, and I mean direct, line to your bottom line. Let's look at the hard data. To solve a problem, you first have to understand why it's happening. So let's take a look inside this mechanism and see exactly how this simple little feature is so prone to failure.
Okay, so the hero, or maybe the villain of our story, is something called the rotary damper. It's basically the heart of the whole soft close system. The easiest way to think of it is like a tiny hydraulic cylinder. Inside a sealed case, you've got a rotor pushing against this really thick silicone oil, and that creates resistance, which is what lets the seat close so gently and silently. When it works, it's beautiful. When it fails, well...
Which leads us directly to the fundamental problem with how most businesses handle these failures right now. I like to call it the throwaway model. Think about it. Because these dampers are sealed units that can't be fixed, a failure of a component that might cost, pennies to make, triggers a full warranty claim. That means processing a return, shipping a big, bulky toilet seat back, and sending out a brand new one. The cost difference is just enormous. You are literally throwing away a perfectly good seat because of one tiny failed part.
But what if there was a better, much smarter strategy? A modular solution that is designed for serviceability right from the very beginning.
And the difference is just night and day. On the left, you see the old way, a sealed integrated damper. It requires a full seat replacement, which means high costs, tons of e-waste, and unhappy customers. But then look at the right. This is the modular approach. We're talking about a replaceable damper cartridge. It's a separate part, a separate SKU. When it fails, you ship just that tiny, low-cost part, not the whole seat. This slashes service costs, it aligns with circular design, and you can even turn a negative customer experience into a really positive one.
The choice to move from an integrated, disposable design to a modular, serviceable one, it's not just a technical update. It's a fundamental strategic decision about how you want to position your product line for the future.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about for your own business. In an era where sustainability and service are becoming more and more important, where they're becoming a key indicator of brand quality, can any company really afford to stick with a throwaway product strategy? The answer, I think, is...
There's some objects we see every day, things we use without a second thought, that are actually quiet marvels of engineering. Today, we're diving into one of them, the public toilet seat, and we're going to uncover the incredible science and engineering it takes to build one that can survive, well, pretty much anything.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen this before. A cracked, broken toilet seat. In a high-traffic public restroom, this isn't just an accident. It's really the aftermath of a constant, daily battle against a surprisingly long list of threats.
So what's it up against? Well, here's the enemy list. We're talking extreme vandalism, corrosive industrial-strength bleach used for cleaning, heavy people, dynamic loads, that's people plopping down on them, and just constant, repetitive use thousands and thousands of times.
Okay, so the first place we have to look, the absolute foundation of a heavy-duty seat, is the material it's made from. This decision is truly the first and most critical line of defense. It determines everything: its hardness, its flexibility, and its overall lifespan.
You could have the strongest seat material in the world, but it's totally useless if its weakest link fails. And that is always the hardware. The hinges are where everything can fall apart, literally.
And when it comes to the hardware, it's not just about brute strength. Nope. The real killer, the #1 enemy, is corrosion. That constant exposure to industrial cleaning agents, especially bleach, will just eat away at cheap metal. The hinges rust, they seize up, and eventually, they just snap.
So what's the answer? It's got to be high-grade stainless steel. There's really no other way. Now, Type 304 is good for most places, but if you're serious about durability, you go for Type 316. It's got extra stuff in it that makes it way more resistant to the corrosive chlorides in bleach and even salt. It simply won't rust, which means the hinges will work smoothly for years and years.
You've got your corrosion-proof hardware, but how do you know it's actually going to hold up? How can a buyer prove that the final product can really handle the abuse? Well, that's where standardized torture tests come in.
And one of the most demanding standards in the entire world is the German one, DIN 1915-16. Seriously, if a seat can pass these tests, you know it's incredibly tough. The standard lays out this whole series of brutal trials to make sure a seat can resist both static weight and sudden dynamic forces.
First up, the static load test. For the cover, the closed lid has to be able to support a weight of 175 kilograms. That's about 385 pounds, and it has to do it without cracking, tearing, or being permanently bent out of shape.
But And this is where it gets absolutely insane. For the really heavy-duty seats, the ones designed for hospitals or high-abuse places like airports, that number skyrockets to an incredible 400 kilograms. That is 880 pounds. The seat has to hold that massive load without any structural failure at all.
The materials, the hardware, and the proof from the torture testing. Let's put it all together and build the final blueprint for a truly indestructible toilet seat.
Here's the recipe. Step 1. You start with high-density Duraplast for that tough, scratch-resistant, hygienic surface. 2. You make sure the underside is reinforced with a ribbed or honeycomb pattern to spread out any stress. 3. You demand solid Type 316 or 304 stainless steel for all the hardware. No compromises. And finally, number 4, you demand proof. A test certificate showing it passes that DIN 195116 standard, especially that monster 400 kilogram load test.
And this quote from an industry guide just nails it. Getting these specifications right isn't about over-engineering. It's a strategic move. It's how you stop that endless cycle of cracked seats, wobbly hinges, and constant, expensive replacements. It saves a ton of money and reduces safety risks in the long run.
And this is why all of this really matters. You know, it's not just about a toilet seat. It's about ensuring safety and dignity for people, especially in places like hospitals or care homes. For the people who run these buildings, it means slashing maintenance costs. For the rest of us, it's just a cool hidden example of the incredible science that makes our world work. And of course, a solid, crack-free surface is just fundamentally more hygienic.
So the next time you're out and about, maybe you'll look at that toilet seat a little differently. You might not see just a simple piece of plastic anymore. You might just see a marvel of material science, engineered to fight and win a battle every single day. Thanks for joining me on this one.
Hey everyone, let's talk about a bathroom upgrade that can be a total game changer. Especially if you're in an older house or a rental where, getting an electrician in is just not happening. We're diving into the world of non-electric bidets, and you'll be surprised at just how simple they are.
So, let's kick things off with a statistic that really puts this all into perspective. Just think about that. According to the Urban Institute, more than half of all public housing households are led by someone who's either over 62 or has a disability. That's a huge number, and it shines a spotlight on this massive need for making our homes safer and way more.
Okay, so when you dream about upgrading your bathroom, what comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's that super high-tech, luxury smart toilet, right? The kind with all the bells and whistles. We're talking warm water, a toasty heated seat, a warm air dryer, heck, maybe even a little remote control. It's like the Cadillac of toilets.
But, and this is a big but, this is where things get really interesting. You can absolutely get all the fantastic, hygienic benefits of a bidet with zero electrical work. None. Let's break down the options.
All right, so you've basically got two main paths you can go down. First up are the non-electric attachments. These are super affordable. We're talking 20 to 80 bucks, and they literally just clamp onto the toilet you already have. Then you have the non-electric seats. These cost a bit more, but they replace your whole toilet seat, so they look a lot sleeker. The key thing for both? They use cold water, and they are ridiculously easy to install.
And just look at that. This is the big win for the non-electric seat. It has such a clean look.
How do you choose the right one for you? Let's figure out how to make sure you get a perfect match for your bathroom.
If you look at online reviews, you start to see a pattern. The biggest complaint, by a long shot, is about fit. Almost half of the bad reviews are because it just didn't fit their toilet correctly. Then another chunk of people had trouble with installation. And you know what? Most of this can be avoided with one simple step. Before you buy anything, figure out if you have a round or an elongated toilet bowl. It'll save you a huge headache.
And as for those installation problems, let's pull back for a second and look at the bigger picture. Because really, this isn't just about being cleaner. It's about something much more profound. It's about the huge impact a really simple change can have on a person's quality of life.
Here's the main takeaway. You do not need a huge, expensive, messy renovation to make a real difference in bathroom safety and independence. Think about it. For someone with limited mobility, maybe they have a bad back or hip problems, a bidet can be life-changing. It gets rid of the need for all that twisting and reaching. It's a truly empowering, affordable, and accessible upgrade that almost anyone can do.
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? This quote says it all. It's not about luxury. It's about empowerment. It's about giving people the tools to live independently, with dignity, using simple, smart technology. So, It makes you think. Could this simple, no electrician needed upgrade be the perfect solution for you or for someone in your...
You know, it's kind of funny. Think about the one thing in your home you use every single day, but probably never ever give a second thought to. Well, today we're going to change that. We're diving deep into the surprisingly complex world of the humble toilet seat.
Man, this quote, it just hits home, right? I think we've all been there. The wobbly seat.
Let's talk about what these things are actually made of. The material is the absolute foundation for everything else. We're talking durability, how it feels, how easy it is to clean, and, of course, how long it's going to last.
When you look at most plastic seats, you're going to find they fall into one of two main camps.
What's next? Well, the next critical factor is shape. And this isn't just about how it looks, believe me. This is all about ergonomics and how well the seat fits both your body and your bathroom.
Here in North America, you've really got two main choices. You've got your round bowls with their 16.5-inch seats. These are fantastic for smaller bathrooms where, every single inch counts. But then you have the elongated seats. They're about 2 inches longer, and most people agree they're way more comfortable because they give you a lot more.
The simple, absolute game-changing innovations that have completely transformed the toilet seat experience. I'm talking about the features that finally fix those classic annoyances, starting with that horrible, middle-of-the-night slam.
Meet the soft close seat. Hidden away inside those hinges is this tiny but incredibly powerful damping mechanism. It's basically the same idea that keeps a screen door from slamming shut, just shrunk down to give you a controlled, gentle, quiet close every single time.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. A massive 78% of people who make the switch to a soft close lid say they would never ever go back.
Cool features. But how do you know if a seat is actually well made and built to last? Well, it turns out they go through an incredible amount of intense, standardized testing behind the scenes.
Yeah, a quality seat isn't just something they throw together. It's engineered to meet some really demanding international standards. One of the toughest and most respected is the German DIN 1915-16. And this isn't just a guideline. It's a whole series of tests for safety, rigidity, and durability that a seat has to pass.
Let's talk numbers for a second. During what's called a static load test, the seat has to be able to support 150 kilograms. That's about 330 pounds, without cracking, breaking, or bending out of shape. That's what ensures it feels solid and secure every time you use it.
You are now armed with all the key info, so the next time you have to buy a new toilet seat, you're not just going to be guessing. You're going to be making an informed, empowered choice based on actual science and engineering. So here's a quick little checklist to help you out. First, decide on your material. Do you want that premium, scratch-resistant UF or the practical, flexible PP? Next, figure out the shape. Is a compact round or a more comfy elongated right for your bathroom? Then, think about features. Are soft close and quick release must-haves for you? And finally, and this is super important, double-check the fit. Make sure those mounting holes are the standard 5.5 inches apart.
So the next time you see one, think about this. After everything we've looked at, the material science, the ergonomic design, the tiny mechanical dampers, the insane durability tests, is it really just a toilet seat? Or is it a small but pretty sophisticated marvel of everyday engineering?
We all want our homes to be a safe haven, right? A place of comfort. But what if I told you that one of the most used items in your house, your toilet, could actually be a hidden hazard? Today, we're diving into a problem that a lot of people are accidentally creating in their own bathrooms, especially when they're trying to make things more accessible.
So let's just get right to it. Is your toilet a hidden health risk? It sounds a little over the top, I know, but for millions of people, we're talking seniors, folks recovering from surgery, really anyone with joint pain, the answer, believe it or not, is often yes. The standard toilet you probably have right now might be actively working against your body's natural mechanics. 300%. What on earth is that number? Well, that's the amount of force as a percentage of your body weight that your knees and hips have to deal with every single time you stand up from a typical low toilet. Just let that sink in. 3 times your own body weight, multiple times a day. That is a huge amount of strain, and it's the real heart of the problem we're going to unpack. Okay, so let's break down why this is even happening. The whole issue really just boils down to height. For decades, the standard toilet has been about 14 to 15 inches off the floor. And, well, from a biomechanical perspective, that is just an ergonomic nightmare for a lot of adults.
It really just comes down to simple geometry. Look at this. A standard low toilet forces your knees to bend way down to 110 degrees. You know that feeling when you're trying to get out of a really low, squishy armchair? It's like that. But the ideal height, what we call comfort height or ADA height, is a couple of inches taller. That small difference is a game changer because it keeps your knees at a much healthier 90-degree angle. And that is the sweet spot where your big leg muscles do the lifting, instead of all that stress going right onto the cartilage and ligaments in your knee joints.
And listen, this isn't just about being a little more comfortable. A lot of us are looking for ways to upgrade our bathrooms, right? And maybe the hottest upgrade out there right now, for both hygiene and just a little bit of luxury, is the electronic bidet seat.
So what are we talking about here? A washlet or a bidet seat is basically this really smart toilet seat that you attach to the toilet you already own. You take off your old, boring seat, and this one adds all kinds of cool features. A warm water spray for cleaning, a heated seat for those cold mornings, sometimes even an air dryer. They're getting super popular, and for good reason. But, and this is a big but,
Our story today. So imagine you go out and buy a taller comfort height toilet to solve that joint strain problem. Great. Then you add a fancy bidet seat for better hygiene. Even better. But what you've accidentally done is create a brand new problem out of two good solutions.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. In actual user studies, people notice this stuff right away. This quote from a JMIR study says it perfectly. Someone installed one, and bam, the toilet was suddenly way too high. So high, their feet weren't comfortably on the floor anymore. And here's the culprit. It's pretty simple when you see it. To pack in all that cool tech, the water heater, the pump, the nozzle mechanism, these seats have to be pretty thick. We're talking an extra 1.5 to 2 inches of height that gets plopped right on top of your toilet bowl.
So here it is, the height paradox in a nutshell. You start with a great 17-inch comfort height toilet. Perfect. Then you add your 2-inch bidet seat. Now you've got a 19-inch tall toilet, which for a lot of people is actually too high. Your feet might be dangling, which makes you feel unstable, and you've basically just traded one safety risk for a totally different one.
Define the problem here, right? A totally well-meaning upgrade accidentally created another ergonomic headache. But don't worry. The good news is there are some really clever solutions out there to get the height just right, so you can have your bidet and your safety too. So you've basically got 3 main options to fix this. You've got those big, bulky, elevated seats that just clamp on top of the bowl. Then there are freestanding frames that go around the toilet and give you support arms. But for the very specific issue we're talking about, the best tool for the job is often that third option, a toilet seat riser. And notice the key difference. It installs under your seat. That's the secret sauce for keeping your bidet. Yeah, let's zero in on this. For our problem, a bidet making a toilet too tall, the riser is usually the perfect answer. Why? Because it goes between the porcelain toilet bowl and your high-tech bidet seat. This means you get that crucial height correction without having to sacrifice any of the amazing features of the bidet you already paid for. It's the best of both worlds. So you're sold. But hold on a second. Before you click buy now, you've got to make sure the riser and the bidet are actually going to play nice together. A little bit of homework here is going to save you a massive headache later. So here's your simple 4-step checklist. First, measure the distance between the bolts holding your seat on. Second, figure out your bowl shape. Is it round or the longer, elongated kind? Third, measure your current height so you know exactly how much of a lift you actually need. And finally, and this is the absolute most important step for anyone with a bidet, you have to check for clearance at the back for all the water hoses and electrical cords. And I'm not kidding about that last step. Just ask Sarah from Minneapolis. She learned this lesson the hard way. She bought a height adjuster, got it home, and oops, it completely blocked the bidet's water hookup. It's a costly, frustrating mistake that a simple check beforehand could have totally prevented. Now, to give you a bit of a head start, some companies are already on top of it. Final thought. A little bit of knowledge about height, ergonomics, and how these products fit together can absolutely transform your bathroom. You can have modern hygiene and smart accessibility. You can create a space that truly finally works for you, not against you. So the only question left is it time for you to reclaim that comfort and safety?
So you're thinking about upgrading your home, right? And a bidet toilet seat, with all its comfort and hygiene, is probably right at the top of your list. But hold on. There's this critical and honestly often overlooked factor that could completely wreck your new investment.
Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this hidden threat, using some fantastic insights from industry pros.
First, we'll look at why bidets are suddenly everywhere. Then, we're going to uncover a secret problem that might be lurking in your pipes. After that, we'll peek at what the professionals look for when they're buying. And finally, wrap up with how you can use all this info to make a really smart choice.
Okay, so first things first, let's just acknowledge the trend itself. Bidets are not some niche, quirky product anymore. Not at all.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The experts over at Horo put it perfectly. Bidet seats have become a mainstream, go-to choice for anyone who wants better hygiene and that hands-free, super clean feeling. They've officially arrived.
And you know, this isn't just some fad that's going to fade away. The market growth with this huge wave of popularity comes a potential problem. A problem that could seriously impact that shiny new bidet you've got your eye on.
It's kind of ironic when you think about it. The very thing that makes your bidet work, the water, could actually be its biggest enemy.
The villain in this story has a name. We're about to get a little peek behind the curtain to see what the large-scale commercial buyers, you know, the pros, already know to look for.
I mean, think about it. If you're buying hundreds, maybe thousands of these things for a hotel or a new development, you absolutely cannot afford for them to start failing left and right. So they use a super strict checklist to avoid costly disasters, and we've got to look at their insider playbook.
Check this out. This is a dealer evaluation framework from KOARSH. You see all the technical stuff you'd expect, right? Certifications, low return rates, noise levels, all important. But look closer. There is one crucial, non-negotiable item on this list that most of us would never even think to ask about.
And there it is. The professionals demand a hard water scale resistance test report.
We know what the pros look for. Now let's talk about the solution. Here's how you can take this professional-grade insight and use it to your advantage.
You can protect your new investment with 3 pretty simple steps. First, know your water. Just do a quick search online for a hard water map for your area. It's easy. Second, when you're shopping, try to look past all the flashy features. And third, and this is the most important part, ask the one question the pros always ask. Can you provide the hard water scale resistance test report?
It totally reframes the whole process. You're not just buying a product anymore. You're making a smart, long-term investment.
So here's the big takeaway for today. A truly smart bidet isn't the one with 100 features on the remote. Nope. The smartest bidet is the one that's actually engineered to last, specifically to last with the kind of water you have in your home.
So, as you get ready to buy, just remember this. You already know all the cool features you want. But now, you also have the inside knowledge to ask the one question that will truly ensure your new bidet will last for years and years.
Your toilet, because we're seeing this huge rise in AI-powered toilets that are promising to monitor our health right from our own bathrooms. Now, it sounds a little like science fiction, doesn't it? But the tech is here, and it begs the question, is this a real health revolution or just a super expensive, over-engineered gimmick?
This that has attracted some serious money. Before we get into what it's actually like to use one of these, let's look at the hype. Because the financial world is placing a massive bet that our bathrooms are the next big frontier in personal health. And when I say massive, I mean it. The global smart toilet market is projected to be worth over $22 billion by 2030. This isn't just a niche gadget for tech lovers. Investors are looking at this as a major mainstream market of the future. But let's get into the tech itself. What are these things actually promising to do for you? The whole idea is to turn your bathroom into a personal health hub that works seamlessly without you having to do a thing. And at the heart of it all is the smart toilet seat. Now, this isn't just about a heated seat or a bidet. No, this is a seriously sophisticated device. It's packed with sensors, cameras, and AI that analyze your waste to track all sorts of things. Everything from how hydrated you are to signs of infections and even early markers for chronic diseases. So, when you ask people what they find appealing about this, especially older folks, that's the glossy brochure. Now let's pivot to reality. What happens when these high-tech prototypes actually leave the pristine lab and get installed in a real person's bathroom? This is where the hype meets the, well, messy challenges of everyday life. And what researchers are finding is there's a pretty big gap. The promise of seamless data, it runs right into technical glitches and just daily hassles. The idea of effortless monitoring, that clashes with habits people have had their entire lives. And that sleek, modern design, it turns out it can be a real pain to clean.
In one focus group, the practical problems really came to light. People found the prototypes were a total nightmare to clean, especially around all those new sensors and wires. The design actually forced male users to sit down, which, as you can imagine, didn't go over well. Even the look of it, the color, the shape, it all felt a bit too clinical for a home. And at the end of the day, a lot of them were left wondering, is this really any better than the health app I already have on my phone? And all of these practical issues bring up a big distance, because the worries go way beyond just the price tag or how hard it is to clean. We're talking about really fundamental concerns here, about privacy, data security, and honestly, our own peace of mind. When you survey people, their fears basically fall into two big buckets. First, you have the psychological stuff, the stress of feeling like you're always being watched, or the anxiety you'd get from a false alarm, a phantom alert. And then you have the technical risks. What if the data is just plain wrong? Who's protecting this super sensitive info from hackers? And what happens when your Wi-Fi dies? And then, on top of all of that, we come back to the single biggest roadblock for most people. Is this thing a true game changer that's going to revolutionize healthcare? Or is it just a fancy, expensive gimmick? The answer, it seems, really depends on how you weigh that incredible potential against some very real and very personal hurdles. For this technology to really take off, the industry basically has a four-step roadmap. 1, they have to prove without a doubt that it offers real clinical value. 2, they've got to fix the practical stuff, make it easy to clean, and make it fit how people actually live. 3, data security isn't a feature, it's a necessity. Users have to be in control. And finally, 4, the price has to come way, way down. So, what's the verdict? Is it worth it? Well, it absolutely could be a game changer, if it can actually deliver on that promise of early, life-saving detection for people who really need it, and if our data stays completely secure. But it's just going to stay a gimmick if it creates more stress than it solves, if the data can't be trusted, and if that price tag keeps it as nothing more than a toy for the rich. And that brings us to the real bottom line. The most important question here isn't just about technology. It's about trust. It forces every single one of us to ask ourselves, in this quest for a longer, healthier life, how much of our most intimate privacy are we really willing to trade away? And that's a question we're all going to have to answer for ourselves.
If you've ever sourced injection-molded products from China, you definitely know the golden sample. It's that one absolutely perfect piece you sign off on, and then you just cross your fingers and hope the entire production run looks exactly like it. But what if there's a better way? Today, we're talking about moving beyond that single snapshot. We're going to build a continuous digital system for quality that turns hope into actual certainty.
And this quote, and, way more importantly, how to stop it for good.
All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll dive into the golden sample trap and the kind of ugly defects it can hide. Then we're going to pivot to the solution, how to audit this system, not just the product, unleash the power of digital QA, and ultimately build a real, lasting partnership.
So right off the bat, the golden sample, it's a trap. It gives you this false sense of security. See, we often treat it like it's the finish line for quality negotiations, when really it should be the starting pistol. That massive gap between the perfect sample and the final production run, that's where all the risk is hiding.
So how does this quality gap actually happen in the real world? Okay, so when that quality control gap happens, what kind of problems actually show up in your products? Let's get up close and personal with the anatomy of a defect and meet some of the usual suspects in plastic injection molding. First up, we've got warpage. If you've ever received a part that's supposed to be perfectly flat but looks more like a potato chip, well, you've met warpage. It's caused by uneven cooling and the material shrinking inconsistently. And trust me, it can make assembling your final product an absolute nightmare.
Then there are sink marks. These are those little craters or depressions you see on the surface that can make your beautiful product look like a lunar landscape. And while you can sometimes tweak machine settings to help, the root cause is often baked right into the part's design itself, especially in spots where the wall thickness changes.
And finally, let's talk about weld lines. I want you to think of these as a cold handshake. It's where two streams of melted plastic meet inside the mold, but they don't properly fuse together. Now, they might just look like a cosmetic line on the surface, but don't be fooled. They represent a serious structural weakness that can cause the part to crack and fail right under stress.
So, to stop arguing about what good enough looks like, we need a system, an objective system. And that system is called the Acceptable Quality Limit, or AQL.
It's an international standard that gives us a clear, data-driven language to define what is and what is not an acceptable product. No more subjectivity.
And the way AQL works is actually pretty simple. It just categorizes defects. You have critical defects. These are the really bad ones that could cause harm or total product failure. They get 0 tolerance, none. Then you have major defects, which affect how the product works. They have a low threshold, maybe around 2.5%. And finally, minor cosmetic issues, which get a slightly higher limit. This simple framework turns a fuzzy conversation about quality into a specific, legally binding agreement.
Look, having a standard like AQL is awesome for catching defects, but the best manufacturers, they don't just catch them, they prevent them from ever happening in the first place. And that all starts by auditing the factory's quality management system, or QMS. The real solution is in the process, not just checking the final product.
A real deep factory audit is built on 3 pillars. First is IQC, or incoming quality control. This means checking all the raw materials before they even hit the factory floor. Second is IPQC, or in-process quality control, which is about monitoring production in real time. And finally, there's CAPA, a system for corrective and preventive actions, which makes sure the factory actually learns from its mistakes so they don't happen again.
And when I say a real audit, I mean they go deep. This is not a superficial tour. Auditors are looking at material certificates for things like stainless steel. They're digging into machine logs to verify the temperatures and pressures are correct. They're looking for a clearly marked red zone to quarantine defective parts. And they're reviewing past records to see if the factory's truly committed to getting better.
Can bring in the real game changer, technology. This is how we leapfrog from doing periodic checks to having continuous, real-time quality assurance that honestly was impossible just a few years ago. For the longest time, the injection molding process has basically been a black box, right? You feed raw material in one end, a part comes out the other, but you have almost no idea what's actually happening inside that mold until it's too late and you're holding a bad part. The whole goal of digital QA is to crack that box wide open.
And this digital toolkit is incredible. Real-time ERP systems mean you can track your production live from anywhere on the planet. AI algorithms can optimize factory settings on the fly. And maybe the most amazing part, new in-mold sensors can give you a direct window into how the material is behaving inside the mold during every single cycle.
And look, this isn't some far-off science fiction idea. As this quote shows, the leading manufacturers in China are doing this right now. They are building their own IT divisions to weave AI right into their factory operations because they know that data is the key to unlocking the next level of quality.
Okay, this sounds like a lot of work. What's the real payoff here? Well, when you combine a robust, audited quality system with total digital transparency, you do so much more than just improve quality. You completely transform the relationship you have with your supplier.
The real goal, the big prize, is to evolve your supplier from being just a vendor you haggle with over price to a strategic partner you work with to manage risk and drive innovation. The whole conversation changes from how cheap can you make it to how can we use this data to make it better together. Just look at the transformation this creates. You move from a high-risk model built on hope to a proactive one built on data. Instead of just spotty remote communication, you get real-time dashboards. Instead of just focusing on price, you start evaluating total cost and risk. It's a system built on accountability and lightning-fast issue resolution. I'll leave you with this question to think about for your own business. Is your current approach to quality just a single snapshot in time, that golden sample? Or are you building a system to watch the continuous movie of production, giving you the transparency and control you really need to win?
You know, it's probably one of the most used items in your entire house, but you likely never give it a second thought until it starts to look, well, wrong. I'm talking about the toilet seat, and what if I told you that this simple piece of plastic is actually a battleground of some pretty complex chemistry and engineering? Let's dive in.
We've all seen it, and that kind of leads to the real heart of the problem, finding that perfect color match to begin with. Not just any white, but that specific cotton white or starry white that premium toilets have.
Getting that exact shade and then making sure it stays that shade for years, that's a surprisingly tough engineering job.
So to understand how manufacturers solve this, we first have to understand the science of why that perfect white starts to fade in the first place. And here's a spoiler, it has almost nothing to do with how clean you keep it. It's all about chemistry.
It turns out there are three main culprits waging war on your toilets against this chemical onslaught. Well, it all comes down to one crucial choice: the material. And in the world of toilet seats, there are two main contenders in our investigation: UF and PP. The difference between them is the real key to solving this whole color-matching mystery.
To really get the difference, let's think about the kitchen for a second. UF, which stands for urea-formaldehyde, is what we call a thermoset plastic. When it's molded, heat and pressure cause a chemical reaction that's permanent. You can't unbake a cake, right? Same idea. You can't remelt a UF seat. Now, PP, or polypropylene, is a thermoplastic. You can heat it up, melt it down, and reshape it over and over, just like chocolate. And this is where you start to see the major trade-offs.
The goal is that seamless, long-lasting match with a high-end ceramic bowl. One of these materials is clearly the front runner. Let's take a closer look at the champion of color stability, good old UF.
I mean, this quote from the industry really says it all. The whole point of a premium toilet is for it to look like one single, seamless unit. And a high-quality UF plastic can do that so well that it's basically impossible to tell it apart from the ceramic just by looking at it. It's not just a lid, it's an integrated part of the design.
So what's UF's secret weapon? Well, it's that permanent, baked-in chemical structure. That molecular rigidity makes it incredibly resistant to yellowing, whether it's from sunlight or from harsh cleaners. The surface is so hard and non-porous that stains just can't get a foothold. This is how manufacturers can guarantee that a specific cotton white shade will stay true for a decade or more.
Polypropylene is way more common, and for some very good reasons. So let's give the flexible contender a fair look.
You know, the biggest selling point for PP is its toughness. Because it's so flexible, it's pretty much unbreakable in normal use, which is awesome for busy family bathrooms or places with kids. It's also lighter and a lot cheaper, which makes it a really practical choice for a lot of people. And from an environmental standpoint, it's recyclable, which UF is not.
But this brings us back to the big question. If standard PP tends to yellow, how do manufacturers deal with it? Well, they have a secret ingredient. They mix in special UV-resistant additives during production. Now, this doesn't stop the discoloration process forever, but it slows it down a lot. This helps the seat hold on to its intended color for much, much longer.
All these materials will actually hold up, like they say. Well, manufacturers don't just cross their fingers and hope for the best. They put these seats through an absolutely brutal series of torture tests that simulate years of abuse in just a matter of days.
So take a look at this thing. It's a static load test rig. And yeah, it looks pretty intense for a reason. Its only job is to put a massive, precise amount of pressure on the seat to make sure it's not going to crack or bend out of shape over time. To pass this test, a seat has to handle 175 kilograms. That's about 385 pounds for 3 full minutes, and it has to do it without showing any sign of cracking, tearing, or permanently warping.
Then they move on to the hinges. A machine will open and close the seat and the cover 30,000 times. This is how they simulate years and years of daily use to make sure that soft close mechanism and the hinges themselves are not going to fail on you.
And to mimic a steamy bathroom environment? Oh yeah, they've got a test for that. They lock the seats inside a humidity chamber for 200 hours. It's a sweltering 50 degrees Celsius inside with 95% humidity. Afterwards, they check it for any swelling, cracking, or any other signs of moisture damage.
But maybe the most important test for our collar question is this one, the chemical resistance test. Can it survive the cleaning supplies under your sink? They put drops of really aggressive stuff like bleach and caustic soda right on the surface and just let it sit there for 2 hours. The goal? After they clean it off, there should be 0 permanent stains or damage. That's how they prove the material can keep its color even if you clean it aggressively.
Crazy tests. What's the verdict? Which material is the right one to make sure you get and keep that perfect match? Well, let's just break it down. If your number one priority is a perfect, long-lasting color match that looks and feels just like the ceramic bowl, and you want it to be super resistant to scratches and stains, then UF is your answer. But if you're looking for something that's basically unbreakable, more affordable and lightweight, and you're okay with it maybe not holding its perfect color for quite as long, then PP is a fantastic, really practical choice.
So I guess the main takeaway is this. The next time you look at a toilet seat, you'll know it's not just some simple chunk of plastic. It is a precisely engineered component, designed and tested to survive a decade of chemical attacks, a punishing environment, and mechanical stress, all while trying to hold on to that one perfect, simple shade of white.